Chapter 2230. Lu Zhen and the strange creature fought fiercely, and it was hard to tell who would win. Because this area had only recently been born, a special living creature had formed here and possessed a unique set of regulations. Thus, Ling Han could not determine whether this living creature was also an earthly soul emperor tier, a heavenly soul king tier, or something else. His understanding of this region and the new life forms in this region was zero. However, Ling Han was certain that since Lu Zhen could not win in a short period of time, he definitely could not win. The reason was simple. The rules stored in his body would quickly be used up. When that happened, his battle strength would plummet, and he would be easily killed by this creature. Though Lu Zhen was also aware of this, he did not panic. This was because he had Ling Han supporting him from behind. If he was no match for his opponent, Ling Han would only need to make a move to instantly suppress his opponent. For a while, Ling Han did not plan to attack. He was trying to figure out the unique rules of this place. Directly comprehending them was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It was as if he wanted to enter another system of martial art. Without a guide, this was almost impossible. Just the rules in his body would repel him endlessly. However, if this creature attacked, he could use it as a reference for Ling Han. He had a sliver of hope that he could grasp the rules of this place from this creature's attack. However, after the 4th hour of the battle, Lu Zhen suddenly fell into a state of exhaustion. He could not suppress that creature, and the rules in his body were almost used up. This caused him to fall into a predicament. Although he knew that his life would not be in danger, his expression was ugly. As an emperor, he was naturally arrogant and thought that there was no opponent he could not suppress. Now that this was the case, he was embarrassed. Ling Han still didn't make a move. For cultivators, the experience between life and death was extremely important. It could better stimulate one's potential. Of course, Lu Zhen knew that Ling Han would definitely make a move, so he couldn't possibly force out all of Ling Han's potential. This was not important. In any case, Ling Han had no intention of nurturing this person. However, he was willing to give him a chance because they were both from the immortal region. After fighting for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Lu Zhen was in a perilous situation. His body was bleeding profusely, but he still wanted to save face, so he did not ask for help from Ling Han. However, his situation was getting worse and worse. The creature suddenly turned its hand into a sword and stabbed at his head. This strike was fast and ruthless. There were strange runes flashing on Lu Zhen's arm. If Lu Zhen was hit, he would probably die in his current state. Ling Han was slightly surprised. From the start of the battle until now, this creature's combat strength had actually been increasing, but the increase was very small. However, with his eyesight, he could clearly tell that this creature originally had no combat experience, but now, it was gradually comprehending it. It could be said that this area was still in the state of the beginning of the world. Therefore, the living creatures were extremely primitive, and martial art had just begun to develop. Every living creature had a lot of room for growth. As he thought this, Ling Han reached out casually and grabbed that creature with a single move. Then he threw it onto the ground. Pung! A bottomless pit was formed in the ground, and that creature had completely disappeared. Ling Han, however, was slightly speechless. If he had thrown it anywhere else, there would have been a huge explosion in the surrounding 100 kilometers, and everything would have sunk. However, there was only a small pit here. It was enough to show how stable the structure of the world was. He reached out again, and as his origin power surged, he pulled the creature out from the ground. Ha! Lu Zhen and Mei Hua both cried out in surprise. Although this creature's limbs were drooping, there was not a single wound on it. It had to be known that it had been viciously thrown by a secret emperor. Ling Han reached out and tore off the creature's skin. Pa! It bounced back, showing its astonishing elasticity. This defense is a bit shocking. He nodded. No wonder I couldn't hurt it at all even after hitting it so many times. Lu Zhen sucked in a cold breath. Previously, he had indeed had a slight advantage, and had hit that creature many times, but he still couldn't hurt it. Ling Han murmured and said, "When the world was first formed, the first batch of creatures born were called source beasts. Their battle prowess was far stronger than the creatures born later. Young Master Han, are you saying that this is also a newly formed world? Lu Zhen and Mei Hua both cried out in surprise. They only knew that this was a region formed by the collision of two realms, but they had never thought of anything else. Ling Han nodded. The power of heaven and earth was the strongest, and could suppress heavenly venerables. Thus, the heavenly venerables of the other realms couldn't enter, and could only wait for the connection point between the two realms to stabilize before launching the most powerful attacks. Regulations were only a subsidiary of heaven and earth. This was like a newly formed world, and would definitely give birth to a batch of powerful creatures that belonged to this heaven and earth. However, this heaven and earth was still too young, and the regulations were limited to Immortal Palace tier. Thus, the strongest creatures should only be the elites of Immortal Palace tier. There was nothing that could be done. This heaven and earth was only formed by the collision of two original worlds. Strictly speaking, this was only a region, and not the true heaven and earth. Ling Han stretched out a hand and pressed it on the head of that creature, trying to read its memories. Woo! He suddenly retreated, blood flowing out of his nose and eyes. He felt his heart beating incredibly violently, as if it was about to explode. He couldn't help but be shocked. One had to know that he had cultivated his heart into the first mystery realm of the human body. He had activated the regulations of time, and this was still almost exploding. One could imagine how dangerous it was. Young Master Han. Lu Zhen and Mei Hua hurriedly rushed over to support Ling Han. Ling Han stood still, waved his hand, and said, "I'm fine, but you guys definitely shouldn't try to extract the memories of this creature. It's very dangerous." Lu Zhen and Mei Hua both nodded. Even Ling Han was in such a tragic state, so if they tried to do so, they would definitely be sending themselves to their deaths. Ling Han wiped the blood off his face. Unwilling to give up, he stretched out his hand and pressed it down again. Hong, a terrifying aura surged over. It was filled with primal chaos, as if it could swallow everything. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, resisting it. Streaks of golden light appeared on his body, turning into ancient symbols that could not be tolerated in heaven and earth. This was because after Lu Zhen and Mei Hua tried to imprint on them, they felt their vision go black. Their minds were empty, and they could not imprint anything. This was the true explanation of the great Tao that surpassed regulations, and could be seen as another kind of regulations. They naturally couldn't understand it. Without the Black Tower, Ling Han couldn't possibly cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll unless he reached the celestial venerable tier. If he turned back and started cultivating again, what meaning would there be? The aura of primal chaos wanted to swallow Ling Han's soul, or assimilate him, and drag him into the endless darkness. Understanding rose in Ling Han's heart. This was the fusion of the regulations of the two realms, so the creatures here couldn't help but carry the aura of the foreign realm, and were filled with killing intent. He tried to decipher the regulations, but found that it was futile. These regulations were all fragments, and couldn't be understood at all. They could only be naturally formed by heaven and earth. It couldn't be helped. This wasn't a true large world, and was only a small area formed by the collision of two worlds and two kinds of regulations. However, through these fragments of regulations, he managed to catch a glimpse of some of the regulations of the foreign realm. Chapter 2232. Shen Chao was really very strong. Every casual move he made was a killing move with astonishing power. A 5 secret the arch was really too strong. If Ling Han chose to fight Shen Chao head-on, he would probably be heavily injured or killed in 2 or 3 moves. However, he had once possessed 9 source powers, and the first immortal mansion mystic realm that he had cultivated was tempered by the power of time. This also made his battle prowess far exceed his cultivation level. At least, in terms of dodging and escaping, he was really strong enough to make one's hair stand on end. The void spirit space spread out, and he had countless clones. Even if Shen Chao used a large-scale killing technique and destroyed the entire void spirit space, he still had the laws of time. He slowed down the attacks coming at him by 10,000 times, and then calmly escaped. Even Shen Chao could not help but admire Ling Han's strength, but this only made his arrogance more intense. He attacked again and again, determined to take down Ling Han. "I didn't expect you to be the Emperor's star," he said. "However, as the Emperor's star, you only came now. There is no right or wrong in your eyes. So what if you become a ninth heaven celestial king? You will only surrender when you encounter danger." His expression was cold. "Rather than let you harm the celestial region, I might as well kill you now." He was full of killing intent, and his attacks were even more vicious. This time, he was really going to take Ling Han's life. Ling Han's expression was cold. Perhaps Shun Chao's intentions were really for the celestial region, but what did this have to do with him? "If you want to kill me, should I just smile?" He only used the laws of space and time to fight with Shun Chao. The laws of space were already mysterious enough, and the laws of time were above all other laws. It was very easy to use. It could slow down, accelerate the flow of time in a small area, and even freeze time. Although it only had 3 functions, it was too powerful in battle. If it could work on everything, then Ling Han could even kill celestial kings. Shen Chao also began to expend as much energy as he could. In any case, his realm was higher than Ling Han's, so the laws locked in his body would definitely be more than Ling Han's. Therefore, as long as he expended his energy slightly faster than Ling Han, it would definitely be Ling Han who would exhaust his laws first. It was normal for him to think this way, but he could never have imagined that Ling Han had a treasure like the Black Tower, and that the power of regulations was endless. The two of them fought fiercely, but it seemed like Shen Chao was suppressing Ling Han, while Ling Han was constantly dodging. As time passed, more and more people returned. When they saw that Ling Han and Shen Chao were fighting, they stopped to watch and ask about the situation. Lu Zhen and Mei Hua recounted what had happened, and the natives all looked disdainful. They thought that Ling Han really needed to be taught a lesson. Meanwhile, the other 2 students of the Saint Source Academy were secretly cheering for Ling Han. Because they were alone, they did not dare to make any noise. However, the situation could not be more obvious. How could a Secret 1 compare to Secret 5, not to mention that Secret 5 was a monarch tier? If it was not for the fact that the regulations could not be supplemented here, which affected Shen Chao's performance, he would have already won. Even so, Ling Han was continuously injured. His celestial blood flew everywhere, hitting the mountain rocks, and blasting the rocks into pieces. This was, of course, Ling Han deliberately. If he did not give Shen Chao some benefits, how could the latter continue fighting? Another hour passed, and everyone had returned to the starting point, where Ling Han and Shen Chao's fierce battle was taking place. At this time, Shen Chao was also a little anxious. They had already fought for so long, yet he still hadn't managed to defeat Ling Han, nor had he managed to exhaust all of Ling Han's power. Although Ling Han was riddled with wounds and looked as if he could collapse under the next attack at any moment, he would always miraculously survive. Instead, the regulations in his body became fewer and fewer. Although he had formed 5 body mystery realms, and could lock an astonishing number of regulations, there would definitely be an end if he could only leave and not enter. He was now almost at this end. Boundless heaven and earth, Tiangang strike. He roared loudly, and after accumulating power for a long time, he blasted out a powerful move. Instantly, the sky was filled with multiple golden sharp swords formed from origin power, entwined with the regulations of metal, and swept towards Ling Han. The area covered by this strike was extraordinarily large, enveloping the entire void spirit space that Ling Han had opened, and Shen Chao did not hesitate to add a large amount of regulations of metal, intending to break the blockade of Ling Han's regulations of time and deliver a domineering strike. Ling Han snickered and actively channeled the indestructible heaven scroll. Xiao, 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 endless golden swords descended, almost filling the whole valley. Everyone was greatly shocked. With this strike, could Ling Han still be alive? The regulations here were incompatible with the celestial realm. Thus, the golden swords formed by regulations quickly disintegrated and disappeared, but there was still dust rising in the field and shattered rocks flying. The power of this strike was really too strong. However, when the dust settled, everyone revealed a look of astonishment. That was because Ling Han was still standing, and though there was blood on his body, the aura exuding from his whole body was incredibly domineering, and there was also endless fury boiling. A strange feeling rose in everyone's heart, making them all want to kneel down and worship Ling Han. Ling Han opened his eyes. There was blood at the corner of his eyes, but it did not affect his domineering aura in the slightest. Instead, it made his gaze even sharper and colder. He looked at Xin Chao, his fighting spirit turning into a song, resounding loudly. Even if Xin Chao was a monarch tier, so what? Facing such a Ling Han, his heart began to feel cold. What was even more fatal was that he did not have much power of regulations in the first place, and now that he had used such a powerful move, the power of regulations in his body was close to empty, and his battle prowess would definitely be greatly reduced. More importantly, how was Ling Han able to withstand such a blow from him? Furthermore, was his body a bottomless pit that could actually lock so many regulations? "It's my turn," Ling Han said word by word. Xiao, he took a step, and his figure instantly sped up, appearing in front of Xin Chao in an instant, and throwing out a fierce punch. Humph! Xin Chao was not afraid. Even if his battle prowess had fallen greatly, he was still above Ling Han. Previously, Ling Han was able to contend with him not because the latter was strong, but because he had been constantly dodging. Now that he was facing him head-on, wasn't that seeking death? Did he think that his regulations were about to be exhausted, and he could turn defeat into victory? Childish. The two of them exchanged blows. Peng, peng, peng. As expected, Xin Chao was stronger. With each blow, Ling Han would spit out blood, but he only channeled the indestructible Heaven Scroll and would element regulations to quickly recover from his injuries. But Xin Chao was too strong, so strong that his recovery speed could not keep up. Very soon, his skin split open, and his white bones were revealed. However, Ling Han only channeled a drop of indestructible true fluid, and his body immediately recovered to its peak condition. He looked coldly at Xin Chao, only filled with a soaring fighting spirit, and not a shred of emotion. Xin Chao was really afraid this time. Did you think that he was a fuck you undying monster? Suffering such heavy injuries, and still being able to stand, and actually exude such a wild fighting spirit? If you were not a monster, then what were you? Ling Han did not speak. Xiao, he attacked again, his fists explosively shooting out as he used the furious fist. This time, he was really enraged to the point of madness, and completely entered into the concept of the fist technique. His fists spread out, and the sky was filled with the afterimages of his fists. Fight, 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 fight. He wanted to fight to shatter the sky, fight to destroy the earth, and fight to his heart's content. Chapter 2233. Xin Chao couldn't take it anymore. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Although he had struck back forcefully, it was short-lived. The rules in his body had been exhausted, and his combat strength had hit rock bottom. Now, putting aside Ling Han, even a casual severing mundane tier would be able to suppress Xin Chao with a flip of his hand. Bam! Ling Han punched Xin Chao in the face, causing his nose to bleed. However, Ling Han had obviously controlled his strength. Otherwise, this punch would not just be a matter of blood, but his entire head would have exploded. He was not Ling Han, who had a strong physique. Aren't you very arrogant? Ling Han threw another punch. Be arrogant again. As he spoke, he punched Xin Chao's face. Xin Chao's face immediately swelled up into a pig's head. Did I offend you? But you just had to provoke me. Fuck, are you stupid? I only have one way to deal with sluts, and that is to beat them up. Ling Han continued to throw punches, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard from Xin Chao's body. Xin Chao's bones were broken by Ling Han's punches, and some were even smashed into pieces. Xin Chao could only scream. Who said that emperors couldn't scream when they were beaten? The natives were furious. They took out their weapons and aimed them at Ling Han. Release him, they said coldly. However, the strongest among them was only a fourth secret emperor. After all, how could there be so many emperors? Even on this bloody battlefield, there weren't many emperors. Ling Han held onto Xin Chao's chest with one hand as he swept his gaze across the crowd. He did not wipe off the fresh blood on his face. His cold gaze swept across the crowd, causing a chill to rise from the bottom of everyone's heart, causing them to retreat repeatedly. This infuriated the natives. They were people who dared to rush up and fight the foreign races. Since young, they had seen their fair share of foreign races sieging cities, and every single time, there was a sea of corpses falling from the Heaven's Pass fortress. Even this was not enough to make them tremble in fear, yet they retreated under a single glance from Ling Han. How could they endure this? Go! They took another step forward, swarming forward and surrounding Ling Han. Ling Han sneered. Using Shun Chao as a weapon, he danced and swept towards the crowd. Everyone instantly held back for fear of harming the innocent and didn't dare to launch a fierce attack at all. You are too despicable. Not a man. The natives all shouted. Each and every one of them flew into a rage. They even wanted to provoke Ling Han into putting Shun Chao down so that they could fight to the death. Why would Ling Han care? He just waved Shun Chao around to attack. Furthermore, his battle prowess far surpassed that of the others. Apart from the Four Secrets Emperor, who else could withstand 3 punches and 2 kicks from him? Peng, peng, peng. One figure after another danced in the air, and all of them were sent flying by Ling Han's kicks and smashed into the ground. In the end, only the Four Secrets Emperor was left. They were bound by Ling Han's regulations of time, and the flow of time slowed down by over 10,000 times. They could only watch helplessly as Ling Han waved Shun Chao and smashed them over. Pa! The 2 of them were instantly battered and bleeding, and they fell into a heap. Mei Hua, Lu Zhen, and the other disciples of the academy all looked at Ling Han with gazes of extreme worship. This was too amazing, and they were completely stunned. He was only a first secret, but he could even defeat a 5 Secrets Emperor. He was indescribably strong. They were even more unable to understand why Ling Han's power seemed to be inexhaustible, and why he couldn't receive any replenishment from regulations here. Even a 5 Secrets Emperor had been defeated. Then in this world, was there anyone who could be a match for Ling Han? After a long while, everyone finally woke up one by one. They lay on the ground moaning incessantly. Shun Chao had also woken up. He didn't make a sound, but he would occasionally glance at Ling Han when he wasn't paying attention. His face was filled with confusion. In terms of true battle prowess, he could definitely crush Ling Han, but the regulations Ling Han could use were endless, and he had actually exhausted himself to defeat him. Of course, if it wasn't for Ling Han's exquisite movement skills, his proficiency in the regulations of time, and his astonishing recovery ability, he wouldn't have been able to last for so long. But when all these were added together, it allowed Ling Han to complete a miracle. He had defeated a 5 Secrets Emperor with his first secret cultivation. The Emperor's star was indeed amazing, but if it was only a first secret, it would at most be comparable to a 3rd Secret Emperor. It was impossible for it to contend against a 5 Secrets Emperor. This young man was simply too monstrous. Ling Han coughed and said, "Since you're all awake, let's go back." Everyone was silent. Bullying the few with numbers and bullying the weak was a crushing defeat. These natives had also become defeated roosters, and they no longer had the slightest bit of arrogance. Lu Zhen and the other 3 were extremely excited. After entering the 17th camp, they had been looked down upon by the natives, and had even suffered some hardship. Now that Ling Han had displayed his prowess and suppressed the natives to the point where they didn't even have the slightest bit of temper, they were naturally able to vent their anger. With Ling Han in the lead, everyone set out, heading towards the Heaven's Pass. After a long while, they finally walked out of the neutral zone. At this time, Nye Hashan and the other 19 teams were already waiting there. Everyone's heads were drooping, as if they had received a serious blow. The others all asked, thinking that they had encountered an attack from a super powerful monster. "Han Lin, I'm going to beat you up." Shen Chao's whole body trembled, and the light of regulation shone again. He had become powerful again. This was already the territory of the celestial realm, and he could also circulate the power of regulation, so he had completely recovered to his strongest state. Ling Han completely ignored him and directly walked towards Nye Hashan. "You're courting death." Shun Chao roared in fury, and hurriedly chased after Ling Han, shooting out a punch. His movements suddenly stopped, as if his body had been completely controlled by an invisible power. Nie Heshan showed a hint of displeasure and said, "You are the captain, and also a 5 Secrets Emperor. Are you allowed to bully your teammates?" It was he who had made a move to control Shen Chao. As an ascending origin tier elite, it was naturally effortless for him to make a move. Shen Chao's face was filled with indignation, and thus he was scowling angrily at Nie Heshan. He was a 5 Secrets Emperor, and once he stepped into the ascending origin tier, his battle prowess would not be weaker than Nie Heshan's. Thus, he was not very respectful towards Nie Heshan. It would not be long before he would be able to advance into this level and be on equal footing with Nie Heshan, or even suppress him. Still not backing down? Nie Heshan humphed softly, his single eye exuding endless coldness. Shen Chao's face paled, and he involuntarily retreated. There was a natural chasm between the Immortal Palace tier and the Ascending Origin tier. Without forming 11 mystery tiers, how could he possibly be a match? Meanwhile, Ling Han said, "Lord Nie, I've discovered something amiss in the mountain valley." He told her about the situation he had encountered, including the flash of his eyes. When they heard his words, a considerable number of people snickered. What kind of joke was this? How could there possibly be an ascending origin tier level existence in the neutral zone? It should be known that even 9th Heaven Celestial Kings could not possibly enter, as they would be forcibly crushed by the might of heaven and earth. Could an ascending origin tier compare to a 9th Heaven Celestial King? Thus, when Nie Heshan heard this, he only nodded very casually and said, "I will investigate further." However, he had absolutely no intention of delving into this matter. One could tell from his expression. He waved his hand, and had everyone return to the camp. Ling Han still wanted to say something, but Nie Heshan did not have any intention of paying any more attention to him, so he could only give up on this thought. After returning to the camp, Ling Han began to study the celestial medicine he had obtained, as well as that living being. Chapter 2234. It was possible that ascending origin tier beings were currently being born in the neutral region. To Heaven's completion pass, this matter was actually not that big of a deal. After all, what were ascending origin tiers worth? Any random celestial king would be able to blast them into pieces. Therefore, Ling Han thought about it and decided not to waste time on this matter. After all, as long as he was careful, he would be fine. Furthermore, if that being could come out, it meant that the independent region could also accommodate ascending origin tier power. Then, the celestial realm could also allow ascending origin tier power to enter, and similarly suppress it. Because of this, Ling Han decided to let it go for now. Of course, he wouldn't let it go so easily. He was studying the celestial medicine and that strange creature inside the Black Tower. The neutral region was strange after all. Immortal medicines didn't grow on the ground, but instead grew in the bodies of creatures. Wait a minute, isn't this a new form of life? Ling Han suddenly paused. Immortal medicines and ferocious beasts could only be born in a new world. However, what use does this immortal medicine have? Ling Han retrieved a fruit and swallowed it. Instantly, an enormous power surged through his body. There was a slightly familiar side to it, as well as an incredibly evil side to it. However, there was an even greater amount of energy that he had never felt before. He carefully sensed it. The two realms collided, but the natural laws haven't completely merged yet. That is why this stock of celestial medicine has a portion of immortal domain's natural laws, a portion of it foreign, but even more of it is a completely new natural law formed after the two merged. If there are enough immortal medicines, I might be able to figure out some of the foreign realms' laws. The rules were not universal, but the energy was the same. This immortal medicine could still push Ling Han's elemental energy to a higher level. He consumed the rest of the immortal fruits and felt them carefully. His elemental force had reached the mid-stage of the first secret realm, but his comprehension of the laws was still at the early stage. After all, advancing to the Immortal Palace tier required far too much time. I need to get some more immortal medicine, Ling Han murmured. He was very interested in the neutral zone and wanted to know what kind of creature was hidden underground. It just so happened that after this operation, Nye Hashan had given them many days off and allowed them to move about freely. Ling Han planned to call upon the Rain Emperor and the others, and they would make another trip to the neutral territory. He had not set out yet, but the camp had already sent a large number of cultivation resources to be distributed among the captains. Chen Long, Sui Bo, Shen Chao called out each member's name one by one as he distributed resources. Lu Zhen. The first 5 were distributed to the natives, while the last 5 were distributed to Ling Han and the rest. Lu Zhen stepped forward. When Shen Chao threw a spatial container over, he checked it and his expression immediately changed. Why is there only such a small amount of cultivation resources? What, you think it's too little? Shen Chao swept a glance over, a look of disdain on his face. The other native team members all crossed their arms as they walked over, their faces filled with malicious smiles. Lu Zhen opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he did not say anything and walked to the side. The corner of Shen Chao's mouth curled slightly, appearing extremely disdainful. Then he said, Mei Hua. Mei Hua went up and took a spatial container. He also revealed an angry expression. This is only 1/10 of the last time. So what? Shen Chao looked at him coldly, his eyes fierce like a tiger staring at its prey. Mei Hua only dared to be angry, but did not dare to say anything. He only clenched his fists and retreated. The next 2 did the same. The cultivation resources they received were pitifully small, but they did not dare to protest against Shen Chao. Han Lin. Shen Chao finally called out Ling Han's name. Ling Han walked up. Whoosh, Shen Chao threw out a spatial divine tool. Ling Han caught it and scanned it with his divine sense. He couldn't help but smile coldly. Damn, just 2-star stones. This was the cultivation resources he deserved. Even the dumbest person would know that it was impossible. Shen Chao must have embezzled it. He flicked his fingers and said, Before, I rather admired you all. Generation after generation bled and sacrificed to protect the celestial region. But now, I find that I admired the wrong person. Ling Han swept his gaze over the natives. The ones worthy of admiration are your ancestors, not trash like you. What's the difference between you and the people outside? You only know how to ostracize those who don't agree with you. You don't care about the bigger picture at all. With the likes of you, you want to rely on you to guard the borders? What a huge joke. These words immediately caused the faces of the natives to change. It was not just this small team. People from the other teams also walked over and stared at Ling Han with fierce expressions. When our ancestors bled and sacrificed for the celestial region, who knows where you were drinking milk? What right do you have to criticize us? What have you done for the celestial region? You can stand here today because our ancestors used their blood and lives to exchange for this. The natives all started talking at once and loudly rebuked Ling Han. Ling Han smirked coldly and said, You're right. Your ancestors are indeed worthy of respect, but what does that have to do with you? You keep saying that it's your ancestors, but what does that have to do with you? Everyone couldn't help but be speechless for a moment. For a long time, they had been hating the people outside, thinking that they were enjoying peace. But in reality, they really weren't doing anything serious right now. They were just constantly pushing others aside. So what? Shen Chao decided to be unreasonable. Our ancestors sacrificed so much, don't we deserve better treatment? So this is your excuse for embezzling our cultivation resources? Ling Han laughed loudly. You really are shameless to the extreme. Do you want to die? Shen Chao looked at Ling Han coldly with a murderous aura. Ha, was the lesson last time not enough? Ling Han laughed. Shen Chao's face immediately turned red. Losing to Ling Han was a great humiliation for him. He was a 5-secret emperor, but he actually lost to a mere 1st secret. Even if the other party was an emperor star, it did not make him feel any better. Now, he had become a laughingstock. Even those who usually looked down on him now dared to look at him with disdain. He could only lower his head and leave. All of this was because of Ling Han. Are you looking to die? Shen Chao's eyes were spitting fire. Brother Chao, this is the army camp. Someone advised. Fighting here, no matter who was in the right or wrong, would be punished severely. Shen Chao clenched his fists so hard that his nails dug into his flesh and blood dripped down. He forcibly suppressed the urge to kill and said, "Han Lin, don't let me see you outside." The threat in this sentence could not be more obvious. As long as Ling Han dared to leave Heaven's Pass, he would dare to kill him. Ling Han laughed loudly and hooked his finger at Shen Chao. "Come on, make your move. If you don't, you're my grandson. You're looking to die." Shen Chao had forcibly suppressed his anger, but how could he withstand such provocation from Ling Han? He immediately clasped his hands together and blasted at Ling Han. Bam! Everyone only felt a blur in front of their eyes, and Shen Chao was already heavily sent flying. Fuck, what kind of trick is this? Chapter 2236. Ling Han's group of 5 entered the neutral zone. Fortunately, because this area was continuously expanding, it was about to cover the connecting point of the 2 realms. Thus, in these few days, the foreign realm very rarely launched any attacks. Only those below the ascending origin tier could walk over, so how could they fight? The celestial realm had only suggested a sparring session among the younger generation of the immortal palace tier, yet the celestial realm had not agreed even after a long time. They feared that it would be another devastating humiliation. It's not like they're going to do anything, is it? After entering the neutral zone, the 5 of them relaxed. The rules here were not compatible with those of the celestial realm. Even if an celestial king came here, he would quickly become a cripple. Thus, they did not have to worry about the celestial king's divine will coming here. That was simply impossible. Their goal was to wipe out all the creatures here. Heaven and earth had just opened, and every single one of them was actually a supreme treasure. Ling Han and the others' luck had always been quite good, and they soon encountered a creature unique to this place. Moreover, it had reached the immortal palace tier. The 5 of them swarmed over, and it didn't take long for them to defeat this creature that resembled both a deer and a goat. He cut it open, and sure enough, there was a fruit tree growing in the heart. There were 3 large fruits on the tree, and they gave off a pleasant fragrance. Strange, this area should have been formed less than 100 years ago, so how could it have nurtured so many powerful living beings and celestial medicines of astonishing age? The Rain Emperor looked around at the surroundings, a look of confusion on his face. Ling Han thought about it and said, "The secrets of heaven and earth are not something we can understand right now." The Empress nodded and continued, "Regulations are attached to the heaven and earth. Even the most mysterious regulations of time serve the heaven and earth. Then, in a short 100 years in the outside world, living beings that have lived for hundreds of millions of years here are not strange." Ling Han put the creature away. He had tried eating this beast meat before, and it could replenish some of his consumed rule power. To him, this was useless, but to others, it was a shocking help. Just thinking about Ling Han, he had defeated Shen Chao through attrition. This beast meat could supplement the rules, which was equivalent to others being able to replicate his miracles. However, the power of regulations in beast meat is limited and definitely cannot compare to the amount stored in the Black Tower. Ling Han racked his brains. "I can think of a way to refine this beast meat into pills to increase the effects of recovery." No. Hunyo hurriedly hugged onto Ling Han's thigh. "Nyo wants to eat meat, not alchemical pills. It's bitter." Ling Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What else could this girl think of besides eating all day long? "Let's play," Hunyo said boldly. Ling Han and the other 3 smiled. She was so talented in martial art, but she was still so gluttonous and playful. She was probably the only one in the whole world. It was such a waste. If this girl was willing to put more effort into martial art, her achievements would not stop there. The 5 of them continued forward, sweeping through everything along the way. However, there were pitifully few creatures here, and there wasn't even a single blade of grass on the barren ground. Now that heaven and earth had just opened, every stalk of grass and every tree were source, belonging to unmatched supreme treasures. Of course, the creatures here were strange. Perhaps all of them were a mixture of animals and plants. It was impossible for there to be pure plants. They continued to sweep for a month, and finally decided to return. The holiday was about to end, and Nie Hashan would have a new mission for them. However, before he returned, Ling Han once again made a trip to the original mountain valley, wanting to go to the creature underground. However, he did not dare to release his divine sense, because he only sensed slightly from the surface, and he discovered that the creature had become a few notches stronger. True enough, this heaven and earth were rapidly perfecting the regulations, and an even stronger creature was about to be born. Can we kill this creature? Ling Han and the others were all thinking this way. Every creature here was equivalent to source beasts, and they also had celestial medicines which were astonishingly useful. Though there was no market for them yet, it was likely that as more people discovered the use of these creatures, their corpses and the celestial medicines in their hearts would be sold for an astonishingly high price. At that time, it would be difficult to hunt them down again. There was no lack of prodigies and elites here. Thus, Ling Han and the others wanted to take advantage of the fact that this storm had not risen to take down that ascending origin tier great beast as soon as possible. The problem was, they were only immortal palace tier cultivators, so wasn't it wishful thinking to want to obtain an ascending origin tier great beast? It's not completely impossible, the Empress said confidently. This great beast has a greatest weakness, and that is that it's equivalent to being suppressed, unable to move at all. At least, it can't leave that place. That's right. Ling Han nodded. He thought for a moment and said, "Oh, right. Though our battle prowess combined cannot match an ascending origin tier, I am a 4-star alchemist and can concoct 4-star alchemical pills. And 4-star alchemical pills are not only nourishing but also poisonous." He had never studied poisonous pills before because there was no need, but now he had this thought. After returning to the army camp, Ling Han immediately entered the Black Tower and began to concoct poisonous pills. Only 2 days had passed in the outside world, and Ling Han had already found a suitable poisonous pill. He thought of how to conceal its aura and disguise it as a good celestial pill. However, he did not have time to purchase the ingredients for the poisonous pill. The entire 17th Battalion set off, heading to a place for training. This time, it was not the neutral zone, but the desolate plains behind Heaven's Pass. This was the second battlefield between the Celestial Realm and the Foreign Realm. Numerous elites of the Celestial Realm and Foreign Realm had died here, and after countless years, the number of elites that had died was also enough to make one's hair stand on end. Their mission was very simple, and that was to wander around the desolate plains. The time limit was 1 month. Ling Han walked through this desolate plains and knew that this place was actually quite terrifying. The pressure that the powerful aura gave off was really too great. Moreover, they were walking on a different route this time. Previously, the path that Ling Han and the others had walked on had actually been specially opened, and a large number of corpses of elites had already been moved away, but now, they were going to walk on an area that had not been cleaned up at all. Nie Hashan still had everyone split into 20 small teams, and then move separately. Shen Chao humphed and led 6 natives on their own, completely ignoring Ling Han and the other 4 disciples of the Saint Source Academy. Ling Han was also happy to not see or feel annoyed. However, with this disturbance, the conflict between the natives and the outsiders would probably become more and more intense. He could not help but sigh. The Foreign Realm was about to enter the pass, but there were still many people who placed their energy on the internal struggle, wasting time and energy. However, he smiled bitterly. The ones who were the most inactive were the 3 heavenly venerables. Otherwise, with their help, the battle at Heaven's Pass would not be so tense. If he could still remember that he had been attacked by the 9-5 heavenly venerables in the long river of time, he would probably feel even more stifled. He was in a bad mood, and naturally, Mei Hua and the other 3 did not dare to say anything, and the atmosphere was very stifling. As they walked, they heard a cracking sound, and a white skeleton appeared out of nowhere. It was at least 3 feet tall, and it had a strange shape. It was impossible to describe what it looked like in words. Chapter 2237. This white skeleton was like a creator who had made a momentary mistake when creating a living being, and wanted to crush something that he had created halfway into a ball and recreate it. However, he changed his mind after squeezing it a few times, and even bestowed it with life. Thus, ugly, strange, There were no words to describe what it looked like. Ling Han swept a glance over it. The bones on this skeleton were very messy, and it was obviously pieced together from the bones of many corpses. Be careful, young Master Han, Lu Zhen warned. These skeletons are all formed from the corpses of foreign elites, and have a sliver of will that has not been destroyed by heaven and earth. Although those with too high a cultivation level have already been swept away by celestial kings, they are still relatively powerful. Ling Han nodded. Since Nie Hashan had them train here, he believed that this white skeleton should have reached the Immortal Palace tier, or in other words, there would be Immortal Palace tier white skeletons appearing. This monster was not a living being, so there was no way to determine its cultivation level. They could only know its battle prowess after fighting it. Ling Han strode out and faced the skeleton. Hisses. This skeleton released a strange sound and suddenly waved its arm. The white bones that were over 3 meters long swatted at Ling Han. Ling Han moved. Peng, he exchanged a blow with the skeleton, and that skeleton was instantly sent flying back. Meanwhile, Ling Han's body trembled, and he felt an intense pain in his eyes, as if blood was about to flow out. He couldn't help but be surprised. This skeleton's battle prowess was actually not very powerful, and was only slightly stronger than the 4 secrets. However, its attack carried with it the murderous aura of this place, and gave Ling Han's spirit a considerable impact. No wonder Nie Hashan had them come here to train. It could indeed provide very good training effects. The white skeleton was extremely tough, and immediately waved its arm again, swatting at Ling Han. Ling Han's figure leaped, and he attacked repeatedly, continuously bombarding the white skeleton. Peng, peng, peng. Under his continuous attacks, cracks also appeared on the skeleton's bones, like a dense spider web. Quang, after a heavy punch, the skeleton finally shattered, and the broken bones fell to the ground. Ling Han immediately sat down cross-legged. Although he had obtained victory, he had been bombarded by the skeleton's aura. Some of it had already entered his body and was currently churning within. He had to expel it immediately, or there would be big problems. He sat for an entire day and night before expelling the baleful aura from his body. These weren't slaughter rules, but rather the unwillingness, anger, and many other emotions left behind by foreign martial artists after their deaths. They could kill and destroy one's heart. Ling Han wiped the sweat from his forehead and discovered to his surprise that in just a single day and night, his cultivation level had actually increased by a large margin. He was puzzled at first, but then he understood. These foreign experts were indeed extremely powerful. There was an astonishing amount of energy hidden within their bodies. Even after their deaths, it did not completely dissipate. Under the grinding of the world, this energy could also be absorbed by the cultivators of this world. However, not everyone could easily absorb this energy. It contained the baleful aura of the foreign experts. One had to endure the impact of this baleful aura to be able to absorb this energy. Kill these skeletons as much as possible. There will be great benefits, Ling Han said. Mei Hua and the others nodded. In fact, they already knew that killing the skeletons here would bring great benefits, but they had been following Xin Chao in the past, so how could they have the chance to attack? It was rare that they encountered a skeleton, and it was immediately divided up by the natives. They continued to advance, and their luck was not bad. In less than half a day, they encountered another skeleton, and it was at the Earth Soul level. This kind of skeleton contained too little energy, and Ling Han could not be bothered to take it, so he asked Mei Hua and the others to attack together. They succeeded in destroying the skeleton and reaped the benefits from it. Ling Han set up a formation around them, and then left alone to search for new skeletons. After a month, he destroyed a total of 14 skeletons, but only 8 of them were at the Immortal Palace tier, and the other 6 were at the Dividing Soul tier. At first, Ling Han did not want to kill them, but these skeletons insisted on harassing him, so he could only attack and kill them all. Although the legs of a mosquito were small, they were still meat, so it would be a waste not to take them. His cultivation level also had an obvious increase, reaching the middle stage of the first secret tier. This kind of advancement speed could be said to be astonishingly fast in the Immortal Palace tier. He returned to meet up with the others. When all the 17 battalions were gathered, whether it was Hunyo, the Rain Emperor, the Empress, or the others, they all had obvious improvement. Unfortunately, there was a limited number of skeletons here, and it would take a very long time to breed new skeletons, and there were too many people in the Heavens Pass, so it needed to be rotated batch by batch. It was said that only a limited number of people had the special privilege to train here without any restrictions. For example, Ji Wuming, Shichan Zi, Desolation, and Jialan, the 4 supreme monarchs of the Saint Source Academy, as well as the 2 Emperor Stars of the Borders, Elena and Xing Qinyu. Logically speaking, Ling Han and the Rain Emperor should also be able to receive this kind of treatment, but it was as if the 10,000 ancient celestial king, who had previously said that he would take care of them, had forgotten about them and could only cultivate like the others, limiting the speed at which their cultivation advanced. Would the celestial king forget things? Probably not. Then, the 10,000 ancient celestial king probably had other reasons for not promoting the 2 of them. The poison pills are finally refined, Ling Han said with a smile. He, the Empress, and the others once again entered the neutral zone, and began to throw in the poison pills from the cave entrance. However, from the outside, these 7 poison pills were vibrant and full of fragrance, completely like celestial pills. In order to disguise the poison pills' effects, Ling Han had really put in a lot of effort. It must succeed. I spent countless star stones on this. Ling Han was quite distressed. Even if it was a poison pill, it was still a 4-star grade, so the cost was naturally very high. Ling Han threw in the poison pills, and as a wave of suction surged over, the 7 poison pills were sucked into the cave and instantly disappeared without a trace. The 5 of them all sat at the edge of the cave, waiting for the effects of the poison to take effect. However, after a while, the ground suddenly trembled as if there was an earthquake. The 5 of them were not shocked, but rather delighted. This meant that the poison pills had taken effect, so that powerful existence was tossing and turning and was not far from death. But after a while, the trembling stopped, and a terrifying aura surged out from the cave entrance, filled with vitality and shockingly powerful. Not good, this monster not only didn't die, but has instead become stronger. Could it be a poisonous beast? It's not afraid of poison, and instead turned the poison into energy, increasing its cultivation level. Ling Han and the others were all greatly shocked. This had greatly exceeded their expectations. Going for wool and coming home shorn. Ling Han immediately shook his head. The reason why poison is still because of the rules. At the end of the day, poison is actually no different from the rules of slaughter, time, and space. The Empress immediately understood Ling Han's thoughts and said, but in this neutral zone, the rules have been broken, and the poison rule may have become the wood element rule here, which is instead filled with vitality. So, using our poison pills to kill this monster not only did not have any effect, but instead made it stronger. Hunyo clapped her hands and said, then we'll use tonic to poison it to death. Cell phones read more refreshingly. Chapter 2238. If poison couldn't kill him, then he would use tonics. This sounded absurd, but in this new world where the laws were chaotic, it was possible. Ling Han pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, no, that's not right. Although that poison just now became a tonic, that doesn't mean that a tonic will become a poison. Because there are too many regulations, who knows which regulations here should correspond to the poison element. The Rain Emperor and the others pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. Perhaps the metal elemental laws corresponded to the poison Tao here. Perhaps it was the water elemental laws, or perhaps it was the thunder elemental laws. A new world, a new set of laws. Then what do? Try them one by one? Bewitching Maiden Ro asked unwillingly. Ling Han shook his head. I've already spent a lot of resources to refine a batch of poisonous pills. If I were to try them one by one, I wouldn't have enough financial resources. Then what should we do? Got it. Ling Han suddenly clapped his hands. Let's continue feeding this guy poisonous pills. It's over, Nyo's Ling Han has become stupid. Hunyo stroked Ling Han's head. That's a tonic for big monsters. Ling Han smiled and said, I know. The Empress and the Rain Emperor instantly understood and nodded, saying, understood. What do you guys understand? Meanwhile, bewitching Maiden Ro's face was filled with confusion. She hated it the most when others pretended to be dumb in front of her. Ling Han, on the other hand, did not keep her in suspense, because Hu Niu was here. He had to be mentally prepared to keep this little girl in suspense, in case she went berserk. He said, "This batch of poisonous pills has a very obvious effect on that monster. Its cultivation has greatly increased." "That's right, then why do you still want to mend it?" Bewitching Maiden Ro blinked her eyes, her pretty face still filled with confusion. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, "But don't forget that there's a cultivation restriction here. Even if an immortal king wants to force his way in, he would only explode and die." At this point, bewitching Maiden Ro finally understood and said, "Oh, you want to fill up this monster?" This monster could increase its cultivation base after eating the poison pill, but there was a cultivation limit here. Once it exceeded the limit, it would explode. Even though this monster was nurtured by the heavens and earth and could enjoy some privileges, it was still restricted. There must be rules in this world. Let's go. Let's go back to buy the materials and continue refining pills. They returned to the barracks. The Rain Emperor and the others had all gathered their own cultivation resources and then went to the trade market in the city to exchange for the poison pills and materials they needed. Heaven's Pass was extremely large. Even though the resources here were poor, because of the foreign experts' remains, in reality, it didn't lack cultivation materials. It was because these remains had great uses, able to be refined into pill medicines, precious artifacts, and other things. Especially after the arrival of St. Source Academy students, the exchange market also became incomparably prosperous. On one hand, they brought with them the rich materials of the immortal domain, and on the other hand, they brought extremely special materials like the remains of foreign powerhouses. When Ling Han came to the market, he was surprised to find that the beast meat in the neutral area was also put up for sale. Moreover, the purpose was marked, which was to supplement rule force. This caused a huge sensation, causing rich people to spend a lot of money and fight to purchase it. When a new world was formed, even if it was pitifully small, it would still contain great opportunities. Actually, all the major forces were watching, but the neutral area limited the level of elites, so everyone was just sitting back and watching. What was most important? No one had seen the formation of the world, and observing this process would be of great help to them in understanding the formation of the celestial realm. This question pointed directly to the core of the rules, and even surpassed the rules themselves. Was this important or not? Thus, the beast meat that could supplement rule force was naturally a hot seller. The significance and value of this was too great. Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head. Presumably, there were actually people who discovered the magical effects of the beast meat before him. After all, he had entered late. However, they were the same as him, choosing to make a fortune in silence, taking advantage of the fact that the news hadn't spread yet to spread. However, paper could not contain fire. Someone took out the beast meat to sell, so this secret naturally couldn't be kept. It could be imagined that today, there would be countless people swarming into the neutral area and starting a crazy hunt. Moreover, if the celestial realm could discover it, could it be that the foreign realm couldn't? The intensity of the competition might exceed everyone's expectations. Ling Han didn't care so much. He first bought the materials that he needed to buy, and then returned to the barracks to continue refining poison pills. Heaven's Pass, in a gigantic stone castle. Immortal King Nagu sat high above. He was a 9th firmament immortal king. He had been stationed here for several epochs, and he also had a powerful faction in Heaven's Pass. In fact, the number of immortal kings in Heaven's Pass was definitely the highest in the celestial realm. If this force suddenly surged into the celestial realm, it would cause an earth-shattering change in the celestial realm's power structure. However, in order to resist the foreign realm, the immortal kings reached an agreement. Every immortal king could only stay outside for a certain period of time before returning to Heaven's Pass to serve. Of course, after making great contributions, they could still return to the celestial realm and enjoy a peaceful life before returning. However, most immortal kings still took root here. But this was because there was an opportunity to break through to the heavenly venerate realm. The collision of the two realms might result in a loophole, allowing them to surpass immortal kings and become heavenly venerates. Immortal King Nagu's 7 sons sat cross-legged around him. They were known as the 7 kings of the Chang family. They were all immortal kings, and each one was more outstanding than the other. The eldest was a 5th firmament immortal king, while the 7th was an 8th firmament immortal king. He wasn't far from the 9th firmament. "Father, it's time for us to make some plans for the neutral zone," said the 5th son of the Chang family. Immortal King Nagu's eyes were closed like a statue. The 7 kings of the Chang family were already used to their father's behavior. The first son of the Chang family said, "At the beginning of the world we can pry into the primordial Tao laws. This will help us step out of the immortal king realm and into the Empyrean realm. Those existences probably advanced into the Empyrean realm this way, right?" said the second son of the Chang family. At that moment, Immortal King Nagu suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately, the 7 kings of the Chang family shut their mouths. "I divine that there are great opportunities in this world," said Immortal King Nagu. When he opened his eyes, divine light shot out as though he could see into the future. "Father, what should we do?" asked the 3rd son of the Chang family. "Occupy as much territory as possible," said Immortal King Nagu. "However, there are many factions eyeing this place. Do your best, but don't be too deliberate. Now isn't the time to fight for it with all your might." "Yes, father." The 7 kings of the Chang family nodded respectfully. Beside a sparkling lake, an old man was fishing. Behind him stood a young man, bowing solemnly. "Fei-ching, that new world is about to truly open, and there are great opportunities hidden within. I can't enter at the moment, so I'll leave it to you to make arrangements first," said the old man calmly with his eyes closed. "Yes," the young man replied respectfully. His name was Meng Fei-ching, and he was one of the many disciples of this old man. He was also the youngest and the one with the most potential. "Opportunities lie in the heavens and man. I have divined that this new world might produce a core. If you obtain it, you might be able to see the secrets of the origin of the laws of heaven and earth," said the old man. Meng Fei-ching revealed an excited look. "Disciple will definitely obtain the core of heaven and earth for master." The old man nodded and said, "Go, master is very confident in you." Chapter 2240. No one moved anymore. There might be an ascending origin tier great beast hidden here, and if it came out, it would be able to instantly kill everyone. Who would still be in the mood to fight and kill? If they lost their lives, everything would be for naught. Ling Han, however, was very calm. Heavenly venerables could only ignore the regulations, but couldn't stand above the heaven and earth. This place was newly formed, and the regulations of heaven and earth were still perfected. This heaven and earth was the greatest. Perhaps a heavenly venerable could forcibly destroy this heaven and earth if he came. After all, it had just been formed and was like a newborn baby, so it couldn't possibly be a match for a heavenly venerable. Thus, the great beast couldn't possibly come out, and could only be suppressed to death by the heaven and earth. Hong, long, the heaven and earth trembled, and the aura that emanated became more and more terrifying. Go quickly," Tu Jin said hurriedly. Xiao. The 9 members of the Tu clan activated the power of regulations as if they didn't care for their lives, forcibly flying away to leave this godforsaken place as soon as possible. In the outside world, ascending origin tier was nothing at all. There were plenty of celestial kings in Heaven's Pass, but here, ascending origin tiers were fully deserving of being invincible overlords. Who could rival them? But as they ran, more people heard the commotion and hurried over to see what was going on. After all, many celestial kings had predicted that this heaven and earth was newly born, and there would be astonishing fated opportunities appearing. However, the people of Heaven's Pass naturally knew each other, especially when it involved celestial kings. The 9 members of the Tu clan didn't dare to hide such important information. Otherwise, if the descendants of 9th heaven celestial kings died here, how could they bear such consequences? Thus, as they ran, they shouted that an ascending origin tier great beast had appeared and hurriedly fled for their lives. Ascending origin tier, this gave everyone a fright, and they hurriedly followed. Hunyo clapped her hands and laughed loudly. This was like a stone that startled 1,000 birds, and the scene was very interesting. The aura that emanated from underground became more and more terrifying, and even those outside the valley could clearly sense it, so they didn't dare to approach at all, and immediately turned to run. The news of the great beast's appearance spread rapidly, causing many forces to avoid it, but some people did the opposite. For example, Meng Fei Cheng. Master said that this place could form the core of heaven and earth, which only exists when the heaven and earth has just been born, and will slowly disappear. The core of heaven and earth contains the origin secrets of a world, the mother of natural laws. If I can obtain it, I will have a chance of breaking into the Empyrean sovereign realm, he muttered. Even though this is a heaven and earth produced from the collision of two worlds, even if a heaven and earth core was born, there is no way it can compare to the core that was born in the immortal domain back then. However, in the end, it is still an unmatched supreme treasure that is above all immortal medicines. This place clearly restricts cultivation to the immortal palace tier, yet an ascending origin tier great beast has appeared. This means that the core of heaven and earth is very likely to be there. His eyes glowed as he moved faster and faster. In the valley, the ground shook like a carpet. This was not as simple as just rising and falling, but each tremble was accompanied by a terrifying power. Ping Ling Han's fist smashed the ground that was coming at him into pieces, and he felt a slight pain in his fist. This was only the shockwave brought about by an ascending origin tier great beast, yet it was actually so powerful. If they were to face this great beast head-on, it was clear that they would be instantly wiped out. The heaven and earth restricts cultivation, but there is an ascending origin tier great beast here, and it is continuously becoming stronger. Could it be the strongest being here? The Empress suddenly asked. Ling Han pondered for a moment, nodded, and said, "Perhaps it is the source beast among source beasts, the strongest king." When the heaven and earth were first formed, the first batch of beings that were born were all called source beasts. This was the origin of all living beings, but the other living beings were only at the immortal palace tier and dividing soul tier. Only this one had reached the ascending origin tier, so it naturally appeared to be very special. Perhaps its value is beyond our imagination. They only wanted to obtain the flesh and celestial medicine of this great beast, but now, perhaps the value of this great beast far surpassed this level. It was as if the earth was beating a drum. Every tremor was a direct blow to their hearts. So what if they were at the immortal palace tier? Their faces all paled, and they felt as if their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. The discomfort was indescribable. Thankfully, Ling Han and the others were all very powerful, and even bewitching Maiden Ro was a top-notch emperor tier, so they just barely suppressed this kind of discomfort. That great beast's aura rose endlessly, and had already touched the limits of the ascending origin tier. It had indeed obtained the favor of the heaven and earth, and its strength far surpassed that of other living beings, but it still could not break free from the restrictions of the regulations, and could only hibernate underground, unable to come out. In fact, this was already a backdoor, but if it continued to strengthen like this, even the heaven and earth could no longer be biased. After all, the heaven and earth could not directly interfere with the world, but rather through regulations. However, regulations were emotionless, and turned like gears, precise, and most impartial. When this great beast actually showed signs of breaking through to the celestial king tier, the regulations of this place began to strongly target it. Dark clouds appeared out of nowhere, but there was no interweaving of lightning. Instead, there was endless flames burning, but they did not spew out, as if they were accumulating power. Not good, run. Ling Han's expression changed. Heavenly tribulation would indeed not target things that were not its target, but if this thing just so happened to be in the area covered by the heavenly tribulation, and especially if it blocked the path of the heavenly tribulation would also mercilessly erase it. The great beast was underground, and they were standing on the surface, which just happened to be between the heavenly tribulation and the great beast. Wasn't this asking for a beating? The five of them hurriedly broke into a run, using all their strength. Boom! Just at this moment, a fiery red sword light shot out from the clouds and descended in the direction of the valley. This sword light was formed from flames and was densely covered with countless seals. The aura it exuded was powerful to the extreme. Pung! The fiery sword descended, and it was as if the heavens had moved, unleashing a sword that could slay gods and slay celestials. Rumble! The whole valley was instantly destroyed. Rubble flew in all directions. Pung, pung, pung. Ling Han and the others were all blasted by these rubble, and like cannonballs, they flew out of the valley at high speed. They crashed heavily onto the ground. Ling Han was still fine, but bewitching Maiden Ro directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her whole body had also sustained many injuries, and she was in an incredibly sorry state. Ling Han's physique was strong, and he could still withstand this bit of damage. He gritted his teeth. The 5 of them seemed to have caused too much of a commotion. Now, not just the people nearby, probably the entire neutral area would see such an astonishing scene. This heaven and earth had just been established, and the regulations had not been perfected yet. There was not a single being that had survived the heavenly tribulation, but Ling Han and the others had forcibly allowed one of them to survive the heavenly tribulation. This was awesome, right? Furthermore, the one that was undergoing the heavenly tribulation was the most powerful great beast that could only lie dormant normally. The heaven and earth unleashed their might, wanting to wipe out the existence that exceeded the limits of the regulations. The fiery swords descended one after another, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Ling Han and the others could only stand to one side. The whole valley had already turned into a sea of flames. This was not just an adjective, it had truly become a sea of flames. The original valley had long since been flattened. There were seals throbbing in the sea of flames. That was the highest regulations of fire in this place. Perhaps they had not reached the level of Celestial King tier, but they were not far from it. Otherwise, they would not have been qualified to slay that great beast. Roar! Amidst a furious roar, a colossal being soared up from the sea of flames and roared furiously at the sky. Chapter 2241. This was a massive creature that was 30,000 meters long. It was shaped like a whale, but it had 2 wings. They were not bird wings, but rather bat wings. There were even small claws growing on the wings, and they were covered in black scales, as if they were supreme divine metal. Is this that great beast? Ling Han and the others murmured. This great beast combined the characteristics of creatures from the celestial realm and the foreign realm. For example, this whale was in the form of the celestial realm, but the bat wings were a characteristic of the foreign realm. The great beast roared at the sky, and its voice turned into a huge wave that blasted in all directions. Ling Han and the Rain Emperor exchanged a look, and both rushed out, pushing their hands at the sky. Hong! The sound wave had already arrived and instantly pushed them back. The 2 of them also roared in anger and exploded with astonishing power, opening up a safe space to protect Hunyo and the others. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The clothes on their arms were instantly torn to shreds, and then multiple bloody wounds appeared on their arms. Then, pieces of flesh were forcefully pulled out, revealing terrifying white bones. This was too terrifying. This great beast had only roared, and it had such might that even the 2 great emperor stars were so strained. Thankfully, the sound wave finally passed. Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were both on the verge of collapse. In just this short moment, not only had they used up most of the power of regulation in their bodies, but even the dragon chi of the dragon transformation art that they had accumulated previously was completely used up. This great beast's strength far surpasses ordinary ascending origin tiers, Ling Han said with absolute certainty. It was not that he had not seen ascending origin tiers in action, but their strength was who knew how much weaker than this great beast. It is very likely to be the king of this place, and originally was destined to stand above all beings, the Empress said slowly. This great beast was also bloody unlucky, actually running into a 4-star alchemist like Ling Han, who spared no expense to help it mature, and in the end, it was targeted by the regulations of heaven and earth, wanting to erase its existence. It was too strong, and the regulations did not allow it. Now that the valley has turned into a sea of flames and merged with the laws of the 2 realms, We won't be able to get close. How are we supposed to collect the beast's corpse? Asked Ling Han. They had paid such a huge price. If they didn't gain anything, it would be too much of a loss. We can only wait. The great beast's strength was incomparably tyrannical. It was defying the heavens, wishing to open up a path of life for itself. What do you guys think? If it doesn't die, will it become the Empyrean of this world? Ling Han suddenly wondered. This great beast's strength had already surpassed the limits of the laws. If even the laws couldn't do anything to it, then it could ignore the laws. Wasn't this the power of an Empyrean? It was just that the level of the world was different, and the strength of an Empyrean was also different. The heavenly venerables here were only at the immortal king level. However, if this great beast could survive, then it was not something that the 5 of them could fight against. They could only give up on the idea of obtaining treasures from it. AI. Ling Han sighed. AI. Hunyo also sighed. Sigh. Sigh. The 5 of them were very gloomy. At first, they only wanted to make a profit, but they didn't expect such an outcome. Great beast, oh great beast, you must die. Hunyo pressed her palms together, her expression extremely sincere. Nyo still wants to taste the taste of your flesh. You definitely can't disappoint Nyo, or else Nyo will curse you to be a bachelor for life. This instantly made the 4 of them laugh. Hunyo was still that Hunyo, her way of thinking was different. The great beast battled the heavens. It flapped its wings, stirring up endless gales that turned into wind blades that swept towards the sky, forcibly splitting apart the fire clouds. So powerful. Can it really defy the heavens, even breaking through the heavenly tribulation? The 5 of them were all worried. Fortunately, although the fire clouds were split apart, more fire clouds soon gathered densely, forming an even more terrifying attack. Human strength was limited, but the power of heaven and earth was endless. The great beast resisted tenaciously and had endless methods. It could control water, fire, lightning, metal, and many other regulations, as well as regulations that Ling Han and the others couldn't understand. This should be the regulations of the foreign realm. But no matter how it struggled, the power of heaven and earth was always stronger. In the pond that was heaven and earth, any existence was only a small fish, so how could it possibly resist the heaven and earth? This great beast began to be injured, bleeding everywhere, and its blood was actually dark green in color, possessing astonishing vitality. When it spilled onto the ground, there was actually grass that grew desperately, and then took shape, turning into the form of small deer and small dogs, running all over the ground. Ling Han and the others were all dumbfounded. This great beast was definitely an astonishing great medicine. Its vitality was too boundless. Not necessarily. The Rain Emperor immediately poured cold water. The regulations of the 2 realms are different. The blood of the great beast is a supreme tonic here, but to us, it might be poison. That was true. Ling Han and the others all nodded. That was because the poison they had concocted was a tonic with astonishing effects for the great beast, so perhaps its blood and flesh would also be a great poison for them. However, this great beast's vitality is too abundant. Its blood can turn into other living beings. This is the power of creation. What kind of existence is it exactly? It could still live after surpassing the limits of regulations, and its blood could turn into living beings. This was too unimaginable. The vastness of heaven and earth really makes one unable to imagine its limits no matter how much they rack their brains. The 5 people all sighed. More and more people appeared, but no one stepped forward, all observing from afar. Who dared to go against the sharpness of heaven and earth? But everyone knew that this great beast was incredible, and its flesh would be of great use. On the other hand, this large beast was already on the verge of collapse. One of its bat wings had already been torn off, and its tail had also been chopped off by the flaming sword. Its body even revealed its ghastly white bones, and its aura fluctuated indeterminately. This was the sign of its death. Everyone was eager to try. Once this great beast was killed by the heavenly tribulation, they would begin to fight over it. Tasting this great beast's flesh, they might be able to obtain the wondrous source of this heaven and earth, And how precious would the celestial medicine that this great beast nurtured be? Second brother, later you go fight over the great beast's remains, I'll go underground, Ling Han said. The great beast's remains were indeed precious, but Ling Han was more curious about the place that could nurture this great beast. Perhaps there was an even more astonishing secret hidden there, but of course, it was also possible that there was nothing at all. All right. The Rain Emperor nodded, confident and domineering. Ling Han said to Hu Niu and the Empress, "You too help second brother too." The two girls nodded. If it was only exploration, one person was enough, but the fight above needed manpower. What about me? Bewitching Maiden Ro asked very actively. She did not want to be a guest. Ling Han stared at her. Bewitching Maiden Ro's expression was filled with anticipation. She did not mind how difficult the mission that Ling Han gave her was. That instead meant that Ling Han valued her. Ling Han considered for a long while and then said, "As for you, whatever." Bewitching Maiden Ro was fuming. She was a secret emperor after all, and would be put in an important position in any great force. After all, even in a ninth heaven celestial king tier sect, there were only single digits of monarch tiers. Ling Han ignored her and only continued to stare at the skies. Boom, a terrifying flame swept past, and the great beast was instantly sliced in half at the waist. It sent out an unwilling divine sense attack, but its figure rapidly dropped down from the skies, its aura immediately beginning to dissipate. Chapter 2242. This great beast could have become the ruler of this heaven and earth, and was favored by the heavens. Its strength even surpassed the regulations, and if it was given some time to grow, even the regulations could not harm it. But now it was forced to fight ahead of time, and the result was that it could only die in silence, so it was naturally filled with unwillingness. But for a moment, no one dared to step forward. Who knew if that great beast still had one breath left? This kind of existence was too terrifying, and even a 5-secret monarch would be killed in a single strike if they went up. The heavenly tribulation began to dissipate quickly, and not only did the dark clouds in the sky disappear, even the sea of fire was quickly extinguishing, and a massive crater was formed, the bottom of which could not be seen. Move! Ling Han and the Rain Emperor dashed out at the same time, one running towards the deep crater, and the other rushing towards the great beast. Shio shio shio. Not only them, but the surrounding people were like sharks that smelled blood, all shooting towards the great beast, wanting a share. Fuck off, I am the descendant of Celestial King Zhang, you dare to fight with me. Pei, I am the 7th-generation grandson of Celestial King Tianqi, who do you think you are? The Chang clan announces that this great beast belongs to us. Everyone shouted as they fought, all wanting to use their background to scare off others and monopolize the benefits. But there were really too many celestial kings in the Heavens Pass. Just the 9th heaven alone had dozens, and there were naturally even more celestial kings below them, so who could scare off who? Even if there was a gap between celestial kings, in such a chaotic scene now, who cared? They all attacked madly. Ling Han did not care. He believed in the strength of the Rain Emperor, Hu Niu, and the others. Even if they could not monopolize this great beast, they would at least be able to get a large share. He flew in the deep crater, trying to remember and correspond to the place where the great beast had appeared. It's here. He soon located a place because at the bottom of this relatively regular crater, there was actually another massive crater, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. Of course, compared to this ocean, this crater was much smaller, with a diameter of about 30,000 meters or so. In terms of size, it was very similar to the size of that great beast. Without hesitation, Ling Han leaped into the crater. At first, it was completely dark here, but he soon found light. They were actually stars. This world was truly evolving into its own world, just like the world they were in. It was divided into the ancient world and the celestial realm. This place was like this as well. Another layer was being developed within, stars covering it densely, sun and moon suspended in the sky. In this place, Ling Han discovered that he was incomparably powerful. He could shatter a star with a single breath. This was not an illusion, it was the truth. If he returned to the ancient realm, he could casually stretch out his hand and crush a star. However, the world had its own rules. He was too powerful, and if he went to the ancient realm, he would definitely be heavily restricted. His battle prowess would be suppressed to the level permitted by the ancient realm. Otherwise, he would definitely be expelled back to the celestial realm by the world, or he would be crushed to death there. The ancient realm was weak only in its natural laws, but the world was still that world. Even a celestial venerable could not make an enemy of the world. As he shuttled back and forth, this place did not seem to be the habitat of that giant beast. More importantly, what was spying on him back then was clearly an eye, not the appearance of that giant beast. The feeling that this eye gave him was too extraordinary, so what Ling Han truly wanted to find was that eye. He started slightly, because he sensed a frightening aura rising behind him. There were currently people rapidly approaching, and there was more than one. Ling Han stopped in his tracks and turned around. A young man was flying swiftly, and behind him, there were a few people walking on air. Get lost! The young man closed in, and stretched out a hand to grab at Ling Han. Boom! Origin power transformed into a frighteningly large hand. Wherever it passed, the surrounding stars instantly shattered one after another. These stars had just been formed, and were very fragile in the first place. How could they possibly match the might of a fifth secret sovereign of the immortal mansion? Ling Han frowned slightly. Previously, in order to resist the sound waves that the giant beast had blasted out, he had completely exhausted the dragon chi in his body. Now, it was naturally impossible for him to have the ability to forcibly resist the attack of a fifth secret sovereign. However, this person was too ruthless. If he wanted to get lost, then he was the first to discover this place, and had the right to do so. How domineering! Ling Han humphed, and unfolded the void spirit space. His body transformed into a myriad of forms, and he easily dodged this attack. The young man revealed a look of surprise, and his advancing figure came to an abrupt halt. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at Ling Han. To be able to dodge an attack from me, Meng Feiqing, you're not simple. He clasped his hands behind his back and said, "You're not weak. I'll give you a chance, be my dog." As the direct disciple of a ninth heaven celestial king, he indeed had the right to be arrogant. Before Ling Han could reply, the third wave of people had already arrived. This was a group of 9 young men, and they looked almost exactly the same. Their clothes were also exactly the same, so it was impossible to distinguish them. "Oh, so it's Brother Meng." The 9 people spoke together. Clearly, there were 9 people speaking, but from their voices, it seemed as if only one person was speaking. It was extremely strange. Meng Feiqing turned his head, and his eyes trembled slightly. However, his expression did not change, and he said, "The 9 tigers of the Chang clan. This is already my territory, so please give me some face and leave." The Chang clan was also a celestial king tier force in the 9th heaven, and the Nagu celestial king was not the slightest bit weaker than his master, so he naturally did not dare to be too arrogant. Moreover, the Chang clan was blessed by the heavens. Not only had the 7 sons of the Nagu celestial king all become celestial kings, these 9 tigers were born from the same mother and child. Though they only had the talent of emperor tiers, the 9 of them were connected, and together, they could rival a monarch tier. Thus, these 9 people were his formidable opponents. We still want to ask Brother Meng to give us some face and let us have this place, the 9 tigers of the Chang clan said in unison, and the 9 of them seemed to be one. Ling Han couldn't help but smile. If Hun Yo was here, she would definitely be extremely curious. "Do you guys eat together? Do you also poop together? Do you guys each have a wife, or do you guys all have one? Then what about when we consummate our marriage? Are the other 8 people on the side?" Meng Feiqing's expression darkened and he said, "I promised my master that I would give him a precious gift. Do you guys want me to return empty-handed?" The 9 tigers of the Chang clan also smirked coldly. "We are also under the orders of our ancestors to take control of this neutral zone, and not allow anyone to occupy even a single blade of grass or tree. Thus, I'm afraid that Brother Meng's wish will not be fulfilled." So we can only fight? Meng Feiqing asked calmly. Under normal circumstances, he naturally would not be afraid of the 9 tigers of the Chang clan, but here, the power of regulations was limited. He was afraid that after defeating the 9 tigers of the Chang clan, he would encounter a formidable opponent, and then he might not be a match for them. Of course, this formidable opponent naturally did not include Ling Han. He was merely a first mystery, and even a monarch tier would be suppressed by a single move from him. Fight! The 9 tigers of the Chang clan all shouted loudly, exuding a blazing fighting spirit. Meng Feiqing did not make a move and instead looked into the distance. However, we cannot make a wedding dress for others. The 9 tigers of the Chang clan also followed him over. Brother Lu, how long do you still want to hide? Meng Feiqing asked calmly. Chapter 2244. In this space, Ling Han had absolute confidence that he could exhaust anyone to death. Unless the other party also had an Empyrean treasure that could endlessly extract the power of law. The movement techniques of the 12 of them were all extraordinarily fast. Shwa shwa shwa. Those with poor eyesight would not be able to see their real bodies at all. They would only feel as if the sky was filled with people. That was because Ling Han and the others were too fast, leaving behind endless afterimages. Come! Ling Han laughed as his movement technique changed unpredictably. Meng Feiqing and the rest were already angered by Ling Han. They had to take him down no matter what. All of them charged forward and attacked violently, wanting to restrict his movement technique. They weren't the slightest bit worried that their power of law would be depleted. That was because they were equivalent to 3-5 secret emperors. Just one of them alone would have locked up laws that were countless times more than Ling Han. Not to mention there were 3 of them. If one were to talk about depletion, it would be Ling Han who had exhausted his power of law first. Ling Han was very naughty. As he ran, he would take out beast meat to eat. It was as if he had exhausted his power of law and had to eat beast meat to replenish it. Meng Feiqing and the rest naturally didn't doubt him. It was just a 5 secret, it naturally wouldn't last long. Let's work harder. Lu Sanbian revealed a malevolent expression. Although beast meat can replenish the power of law, it's just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. He won't be able to last long. Ling Han snickered. He wasn't eating the flesh of the living beings here, but the flesh of the beasts in the immortal region. However, it had already been roasted dry, so who would be able to tell the difference? He continued to run and eat. It was unknown how much beast meat he had consumed. Meng Feiqing and the others all wanted to press Ling Han down and ask him how many living beings had he killed in this place? How could he eat endlessly? If he ate like this, even a mountain of flesh would be completely devoured. After chasing for a moment, their expressions changed. They realized that their power of law was being depleted too quickly. Their speed was actually decreasing. They were even more shocked. Just how much beast meat had Ling Han eaten to be able to exhaust them to this extent? There was nothing they could do. They could only take out beast meat to replenish themselves. If they really used up all the power of regulation, they, who were 5 secret monarch tiers and emperor tiers, would all be trash. They wouldn't even be a match for a severing mundane tier. When Ling Han saw this, he couldn't help but sneer. It was almost time for him to turn from defense to offense. He continued to run. He had been running for many days. He didn't know how far he had traveled in this space, but the scenery had hardly changed. There were huge celestial bodies everywhere, and the entire space was vast and lonely. He was startled, and he saw that there were actually 10 colored rays of light surging in front of him. It was extremely beautiful. He took a few more steps forward, and millions of kilometers of space were instantly left behind him. There were profound spatial laws here. Otherwise, the neutral zone would not have been so big. This time, he could clearly see that the thing that was surging with 10 colored rays of light was actually a square body, but this square body was formed from 27 smaller square bodies, and each small square body was of a different color. When he looked more closely, each small square body was formed from 27 smaller square bodies, and they continued to divide like this step by step. There was no end to them. Occasionally, an eye would appear on the side of the square body that was facing him, and it was extremely deep. Ling Han only took a glance, and his mind was sucked in. He actually forgot that there were 11 elites chasing after him. However, he was an Emperor star, after all. When the terrifying wind attacked him, he still reacted, and hurriedly channeled the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Golden light flowed all over his body, and ancient symbols appeared one after another. Peng, he was instantly sent flying, but he was not injured in the slightest. This is... Meng Fei Cheng and the others also arrived at that square body, and like Ling Han, they looked dazed. Ling Han had already completely recovered, and couldn't help but exclaim in his mind that it was powerful. What was this thing? It actually caused his mind to sink into it. The core of heaven and earth. Meng Fei Cheng blurted out. However, as soon as he said this, he immediately looked regretful. He had really been too excited. Otherwise, with his shrewdness, he definitely would not have exposed such a huge secret. Lu Sanbian smirked coldly and said, Meng Fei Cheng, you are not the only one who knows the secret of the core of heaven and earth. Moreover, my clan's ancestor has also deduced that this core of heaven and earth is called the Magic Origin Cube. However, this heaven and earth is ultimately formed from the collision of two realms, and cannot be considered a true large world. Thus, the power of heaven and earth is only at the pseudo-heavenly venerable level. Only at the pseudo-heavenly venerable level? He said this very disdainfully. In truth, it was not that his standards were so high, but rather that the celestial king behind him had used this kind of tone when speaking, causing him to unknowingly imitate it. Otherwise, how could a mere fifth secret dare to disdain the power of a pseudo-heavenly venerable? This sounded very frightening, but thinking about it carefully, even a heavenly venerable could only stand above the regulations, and before the power of heaven and earth, they were still insignificant. However, the power of heaven and earth here was only at the pseudo-heavenly venerable level, and was far from the true large worlds like the celestial realm and the foreign realm. But when Ling Han heard this, he still revealed an expression of shock. A pseudo-heavenly venerable level treasure. You must obtain this magic origin cube. Small Tower suddenly said. This heaven and earth had a suppressive power over everything above the immortal palace tier, and even if it was a heavenly venerable treasure, it was not willing to oppose it. Because even if this heaven and earth was not complete, there was an endless source of power, and it surpassed all entities. Small Tower did not even circulate its will, because it did not want to be targeted by this heaven and earth. But at this moment, it suddenly spoke, so it could be seen how important this magic origin cube was. Ling Han nodded. He had come for the treasures inside in the first place, so there was naturally no reason for him to give up. However, in his mind he asked, what use is it? If you can refine this treasure, your cultivation level will directly soar to the 9th heaven of the Celestial King tier, but your path of advancement will stop here, Small Tower said. However, the Magic Origin Cube is the core of this heaven and earth, and it can completely control this heaven and earth. If you obtain it, you will be the master of this heaven and earth. Observing the operation of this heaven and earth, you will have a chance to touch the level above the regulations, which is the level of a heavenly venerable. Of course, this heaven and earth is not complete, and it is very backward. The level that you can observe will definitely not be very high, but it will still be of great help. Ling Han nodded. No wonder all the great powers had sent their most outstanding descendants and disciples to enter this place, but they had all come for the Magic Origin Cube. Thus, he was even more determined to obtain it. Xiao, Meng Feiqing was the first to rush out, and he grabbed at the Magic Origin Cube. However, the Magic Origin Cube was as large as a star, and rushing over was like an ant trying to shake a mountain. He was clearly overestimating his own abilities. This is mine. Lu Sanbian also made a move. He had heard from the elders of his family that the Magic Origin Cube was related to a heavenly venerable's great secret, and it definitely could not fall into someone else's hands. If he could obtain this treasure, the Lu family would prosper for 10,000 generations, surpass all celestial kings, and become a true peak great emperor. It's ours. The 9 tigers of the Chang family were no exception. The 9 of them joined forces, and they were like one body. At this moment, they could no longer care about Ling Han. Ling Han, however, sneered. The power of regulations of these 12 people was about to be exhausted, and they were just waiting to be beaten up by him one by one. Chapter 2245. Meng Feiqing, Lu Sanbian, and the Chang clan's 9 tigers began to fight. The Chang clan's 9 tigers were all 5 secret sovereigns. Although there was a huge gap between sovereigns and emperors, they had the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, they were born from the same mother and raised by the same mother, so their minds were interlinked. When they worked together, they were like one person, which made them much stronger than the other 9 secret sovereigns working together. The 9 of them could be counted as one person, while the 3 of them were locked in battle. They all wanted to suppress the other 2 and monopolize the Rubik's Cube of Origin. Perhaps they weren't completely clear about the Rubik's Cube of Origin, but as long as they knew a little, they would scramble for it. Ling Han watched from the side, not in a hurry to make a move. As the 3 powerhouses fought, they ate beast meat to replenish the power of rules they had used. However, this was simply not enough, and their combat strength was already declining. They were all anxious, but there was nothing they could do. At this point, there was no way out. Is this the virtue of a lowly existence? A strange creature appeared with a sneer. It was shaped like a cockroach, but it was countless times larger. It was comparable to a cow, and its entire body was black. It had a pair of enormous eyes that took up at least half the space on its head. Upon closer inspection, its eyes were filled with compound eyes, like a sky full of stars, and had the light of rules. Its cultivation level wasn't obvious, but the aura it emitted was incomparably strong, causing Meng Feiqing and the others to involuntarily stop. The otherworldly prodigy Ling Han was slightly surprised. Plane was a new term, and he had never heard anyone from the immortal region say it before. However, this creature had used its divine sense to communicate, so there was no way he had misheard. Moreover, if the immortal region was a low-level plane, then the otherworldly region was a high-level plane. Otherworldly bug, do you want to die? Meng Feiqing shouted at the cockroach-shaped foreign creature. Although the Chang clan's 9 tigers and Lu Sanbian didn't say anything, they also pointed their guns outwards. The education they received from a young age was that they could not coexist with the other side, that there was no chance of peaceful coexistence or compromise between the 2 sides. Either immortal domain was destroyed, or the other side was chased out, the point of connection between the 2 realms sealed. The cockroach grinned. He was clearly in the form of an insect, but he was incomparably human-like. He said, I am Kohard, a descendant of the great Dark Shadow clan. Although this magic cube of origin isn't that precious in our plane, it is still a treasure. I Kohard want it. Do you think it's yours just because you say so? Lu Sanbian sneered. Trash from the lower planes, have you forgotten that you've suffered a crushing defeat in the previous 2 competitions? Koade laughed out loud. Trash like you living in the lowest lower planes have no idea how many powerful races there are in the dimensional universe. He paused and said, compared to the Dark Shadow race, you are the scum of the scum. Ling Han was secretly shocked as he listened. Although Koade had only said a few words, he seemed to have seen a lot of secrets. However, he was not very familiar with many terms. What was the concept of a plane, and what was the meaning of a dimensional universe? Small Tower, do you know? He asked quietly. This is a lunatic, Small Tower said calmly. Ling Han did not think that Kohard was a lunatic. On the contrary, this guy was really strong, and the aura he exuded made him feel a chill. Kill this insect from the other realm, the 9 tigers of the Chang clan said in unison. Yes. Lu Sanbian and Meng Feiqing nodded in unison. Want to kill Kohard? Kohard smirked coldly. I am at the peak stage of 8 Lotus, which is equivalent to your Immortal Palace tier. However, I come from the Earth Rare plane, which is many times higher than your lowest level plane. Battle prowess of the same cultivation level is naturally overwhelming. He roared, flipped his leg, and slammed it towards Lu Sanbian and the others. Instantly, a huge black insect leg descended from the sky. It had spikes all over it, looking like a sharp weapon. There were black runes on its surface, looking indescribably terrifying. Lu Sanbian and the others all smirked coldly, and each attacked Kohard. Hong hong hong. In the four-way battle, though Kohard boasted very arrogantly, his battle prowess was actually only equal to Lu Sanbian and Meng Feiqing. Logically speaking, he would definitely lose if he fought 1 against 3. However, he had an ability similar to Ling Han, and that was his ability to take a beating. His shell was like a supreme celestial tool, and no matter how Lu Sanbian and the others attacked, it would not break. Instead, it gave him the opportunity to counterattack repeatedly, forcing Lu Sanbian and the others into a panic. Ling Han thought, and couldn't help but feel enlightened. No wonder the 2 previous spars between the celestial realm and the other realm ended in heavy losses. If all the cultivators of the other realm had such astonishing defense, then in a one-on-one situation, they would naturally have an absolute advantage. He couldn't help but think, could he break through Kohard's defense? He should be able to use the source collision, but he had already cut off the 9 source powers of heaven and earth, so he naturally couldn't use this kind of secret technique. If it was the Wrath Fist, would it be powerful enough? Ling Han couldn't help but suspect the divine demon sword. However, this pseudo-celestial tool was still at the level of 4 stars, so it should be powerless against Kohard's defense. It couldn't be helped. In order to break through to the peak of alchemy, he had spent all his savings these years on alchemy materials, so he had no chance to improve the divine demon sword. He was just comparing when he saw that Kohard had already gained the upper hand. It wasn't that Kohard's strength was obviously superior, but rather that Lu Sanbian and the others had first chased after Ling Han, and then battled with each other, expending too much power of regulation. They were already at the end of their rope, so how could they stand against Kohard, who was full of energy? Weak, really too weak. Kohard smirked coldly, his tone filled with disdain. His 6 legs flew and swept, as if 6 celestial weapons were dancing, their destructive power incredibly frightening. The lowest level can only nurture trash like this. Lu Sanbian and the others were so furious that their eyes were spitting fire, but how could they explain to him that they had already fought to the point of exhaustion, and this wasn't their true strength at all? That Kohard attacked mercilessly, wanting to kill these 11 people from the celestial realm. Ancestral teachings. Meng Feiqing suddenly said loudly. Lu Sanbian and the 9 tigers of the Chang clan faltered, their expressions solemn. When encountering the foreign realm, fight to the death and never retreat. Meng Feiqing nodded. The origin Rubik's Cube is too important and definitely can't fall into the hands of the foreign realm. Thus, we'd rather fight to the death to delay for time and wait for our people to arrive. Understood. Lu Sanbian and the 9 tigers of the Chang clan all nodded, giving up on the idea of escaping. The 11 people all gathered their remaining courage, wanting to suppress Kohard. However, their present strength was really not that great, and they couldn't threaten Kohard at all. Instead, they were bombarded until blood splattered everywhere. Ling Han had originally planned to take advantage of the situation, but when he saw the performance of Meng Feiqing and the others at the last moment, a thought flashed through his mind. Though the way these people handled things made him displeased, at least when it came to the greater good, they could still control themselves. The matters of his own family could be settled slowly behind closed doors, but now was the time to defend against foreign enemies. Xiao, Ling Han's figure flashed, and he had already appeared in front of Meng Feiqing, a punch flying toward Kohard. Chapter 2246. Bam. With a heavy blow, Ling Han was sent flying and even crashed into Meng Feiqing, who was behind him. Both of them were sent flying. Kohard, on the other hand, was furious. His attack could have killed Meng Feiqing, but he didn't expect Ling Han to interfere. Although both Ling Han and Meng Feiqing were sent flying, they were only lightly injured. No, Meng Feiqing even spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The guy who had just appeared was completely fine. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. The guy who had just appeared was only at the 8 Lotus stage, so he should be extremely weak. How could he have withstood his attack? Moreover, after exchanging blows with Ling Han, he could clearly sense Ling Han's battle prowess. Almost at the 5th level of the 8 Lotus stage. This was a demon star. He thought to himself, his eyes blazing with killing intent. I didn't expect a genius like you to exist in a super low-grade realm. I can't let you live. Super low-grade? Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head. Low-grade one moment, super low-grade the next. This guy really looked down on the immortal territory. Smelly bug, come and fight. He beckoned with his finger, his expression full of disdain. Lu Sanbian and the rest were shocked. They didn't expect Ling Han to step forward at such a time. Meng Feiqing, on the other hand, didn't expect Ling Han to save him. I just don't want you to die in the hands of the foreign smelly bugs, Ling Han said calmly. If you want to die, I should be the one to kill you. Ha, same to you, Lu Sanbian and the others said with a laugh. They definitely could not be considered friends with Ling Han, but in terms of attitude towards the foreign realm, they were completely the same. After dealing with Kohard, they would fight to the death for the Rubik's Cube of origin. Naturally, Kohard was enraged. His countless compound eyes blinked at the same time, emitting an extremely evil aura. Thousands of runes flickered at the same time, making him look extremely threatening. Trash from a super low-grade realm. He charged out. Even though he was enormous, his figure was incomparably agile. In a flash, he had already arrived before Ling Han. His 6 legs danced in unison, and it was as if 6 heavenly spears were descending. Ling Han unleashed the void spirit space and the law of time to fight against Kohard. Kohard was slightly surprised. Different planes had different rules, but some rules were universal. For example, the time laws and the space laws. Furthermore, these laws were extremely powerful. Hence, after Ling Han circulated the dual rules of space and time, Koade was also a little shocked because there weren't many geniuses like him in the foreign realm. I won't tolerate you even more. He opened his mouth, revealing 2 shockingly large insect teeth. There was actually a symbol on each of them that was currently glowing, making his 2 teeth seem like immortal artifacts. He fiercely bit towards Ling Han, his worm-like teeth expanding endlessly as he slammed towards Ling Han. So strong. Ling Han immediately discovered that this attack was not only aimed at him, but also enveloped all the space in the surroundings. No matter where he appeared in the void spirit space, he would be met with a head-on attack. Yet he was unafraid. He only circulated the indestructible heaven scroll, and his body was as indestructible as a diamond. He forcefully withstood this attack. Die! Lu Sanbian and the others did not remain idle, and they all attacked Koade. The battle resumed. Though Ling Han's indestructible heaven scroll was powerful, it could not be constantly circulated. Thus, the main force of the battle was still Lu Sanbian, Meng Feiqing, and the others. Ling Han mainly charged up to block whichever one of them was in danger. Of course, his battle prowess could not be underestimated. When he used his furious fist, he could pose a great threat to Koade. After all, his eyes and the gaps between his carapace were not protected. Koade was furious. He was obviously stronger, and none of Lu Sanbian and the others were a match for him. However, because of Ling Han's existence, the battle prowess of the others was liberated. Thankfully, because Lu Sanbian and the others had almost exhausted their power of regulation, Koade still had the upper hand on the battlefield. Though I will have to spend more effort, you all will still have to die. He released a cruel laugh. These people were all very outstanding members of the younger generation of the celestial realm, and he had killed more than a dozen of them in one go. It could be said that he had made a great contribution to the battle. Especially when there was the Rubik's Cube of origin here. Don't say it in a disdainful manner, but in truth, who knew how precious it was? Pseudo-celestial Venerable Tier was not awesome enough. The situation of Lu Sanbian and the others was getting worse and worse. Though they were fighting with all their might, their willpower could not be used as food. Once they had exhausted their power of regulation, they were exhausted. The 7th tiger of the 9 tigers of the Chang clan had his thigh pierced through by Koade, causing him to cry out in pain. His whole body was nailed to the insect leg, and he swayed up and down, left and right according to Kohade's movements. Shwa! Koade flung out his insect leg, and the seventh tiger was sent flying. His lower body directly exploded, and his aura instantly weakened a few hundred times. Ling Han's ability was also limited. It was impossible for him to circulate the indestructible heavens scroll endlessly. For example, he was powerless against the heavy attack of the seventh tiger of the Chang clan this time. Old seventh. The remaining 8 tigers of the Chang clan all exclaimed in shock. The seventh tiger had definitely suffered a severe injury this time. Even if he could avoid this calamity, his power would also fall greatly. The 9 of them were as one, and if a weakness appeared, then their overall battle prowess would be weakened. Haha. Koade laughed loudly. The seventh tiger of the Chang clan had suffered a severe injury, which was equivalent to severely weakening the power of the other 8 tigers. This allowed him to find an opening. His 6 legs flew about, his killing intent boiling. Ling Han was completely too busy. The power of the 9 tigers had suddenly fallen from the level of 5 secret monarch tiers, and every one of them had become a paper cone that could be easily pierced through. Thus, he could only choose to give up. If he couldn't save them, he would only lose his life as well. Peng, peng, peng. The remaining 8 tigers of the Chang clan were continuously sent flying, fresh blood flying. Some were still fine, only missing an arm or a leg, while some had their bodies directly exploded, destroyed in both form and spirit. This was a treasure hunt in the mystery realm, and more so a battle with the foreign realm. Blood and sacrifice were unavoidable. The 9 tigers of the Chang clan were all greatly grieved. They had never thought that this trip would actually cause the 9 of them to be separated by life and death. Kohade's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Not long after, Lu Sanbian was also severely injured. A small half of his body had been forcefully sliced off. Not only were his internal organs exposed, even his brain was exposed. His mind had almost been pierced through. Trash will always be trash. Koade had already completely gained the upper hand. His eyes were fixed on Meng Feicheng. This was the last strong opponent. Pooh! He swept out with his claw, which landed on Meng Feicheng's chest, completely dispersing the latter's power. Then he actually spat out a long tube from his mouth, which sank into Meng Feicheng's head. With a Z, he sucked it in, and Meng Feicheng's head instantly shriveled up. The brain of a genius is indeed delicious. Koade smacked his lips, appearing to want to continue. This was really too cruel. You are all Kohadis, the worm said, and then attacked Lu Sanbian. He had not eaten the other party's brain yet. Ling Han was also furious. Although he had eaten beast meat before, Kohadi's actions had crossed his bottom line. He attacked furiously, attacking repeatedly. Chapter 2248. Ah! Koade screamed in agony. Though his shell was tough, his insides were not much different from those of cultivators from the celestial realm. This punch penetrated through the wound, and the regulations of slaughter surged over, instantly mincing his flesh and blood into pieces. His life was completely extinguished. He was finally afraid because at this moment he could feel the impending approach of death, and it was incredibly intense. However, he naturally could not beg for mercy. Everyone in the 2 realms knew that once they met, they would fight to the death, and only one side could survive. There was no pity, no sympathy, only battle, only slaughter. Ling Han's expression was as dark as still water. He thought of the tragic deaths of Lu Sanbian, Meng Feicheng, and the others. Though Koade did not kill them, and these people could still die in his hands, as a fellow member of the celestial realm, he could not tolerate his own people dying from having their brains sucked out. This kind of scene flashed past, and it caused his killing intent to blaze, filled with brutality. He wanted to go on a killing spree. Trash from a super low-level realm. Koade roared in indignation. In his eyes, Ling Han's cultivation level was pitifully weak, and there should not be any possibility that he could threaten him, but now, he could possibly be killed by such a being, and he was really indignant. However, so what if he was indignant and angry? In a battle between cultivators, strength was first and foremost. Only in a situation where their strength was equal would perseverance and other factors be effective. Peng, peng, peng. Ling Han attacked mercilessly, and every strike landed on the wounds that he had previously opened, giving Koade a heavy blow. Die! Ling Han roared in fury, and concentrated all his fury and power on his fist. Kohade's body swelled, and all of his compound eyes exploded at the same time, his vitality instantly extinguished. Ling Han reached out and grabbed, drawing Kohade's corpse into the Black Tower. After thinking for a moment, he also drew the corpses of Lu Sanbian and the others. Then, he looked at the Rubik's Cube of Origin. Innumerable small squares were continuously moving, and each small square had an eye, forming a giant eye. Because the small squares were continuously moving, this giant eye was also blinking. Ling Han immediately thought of the first time he sent his divine sense into the ground and was spied on by an eye. Recalling it for a moment, he found that the two were the same. "Little Tower, how do we collect this thing?" he asked. "Tisk, the core of heaven and earth, the source of all techniques," Small Tower said with a click of its tongue. "Brat, your luck is indeed not just for show." Back then, when the Sky Venerable roamed the world, he still did not obtain a single core of heaven and earth. Although this can only be called a fake world core, it is still a supreme opportunity. Ling Han sighed and said, Hey, if we can't collect it, then everything is useless. Just treat it as a Dharma treasure and collect it. Small Tower casually said, although the magic cube of origin is the core of the world, it doesn't have much power. That's why it needs the protection of that great beast. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. It was no wonder that the great beast was so strong that it surpassed the limits of this world's laws. It was because it was protecting the evolution of this world, so it naturally had to possess strength that was above the standard. Unfortunately, the world had created its own laws, but once the laws were formed, they would operate impartially and impartially. Even the world could do nothing about it. Unless one obtained the magic cube of origin, it should have disappeared after the evolution of the world. Then the laws would operate and form a system. However, this world was formed from the collision of two worlds, and countless experts had surged in. Otherwise, if this world had truly been born, how could it have been disturbed by others? Ling Han walked over. He took a step forward, but the magic cube of origin retreated infinitely, turning into a small. Rules of space and rules of time. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Didn't they say that the magic cube of origin was only a treasure? Don't be fooled by external objects. Listen to your heart, Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded. He closed his eyes and listened with his heart. Instantly, he discovered that his eyes were deceiving him. This was because the magic cube of origin was clearly still in its original position. It had not appeared infinitely far away. He continued to walk forward. Then, his mind was filled with countless thoughts, trying to distract his mind. There was the attack of a powerful enemy, the temptation of a stunning celestial beauty, the apocalyptic scene of the world collapsing, but Ling Han firmly guarded his heart, not being swayed by external things. After 100 steps, he finally arrived in front of the magic cube of origin. He stretched out his hand and pressed it against the magic cube of origin. Suddenly, a change occurred. The magic cube suddenly expanded, and more small cubes appeared. In that instant, it became even larger than a planet. No, every small cube was a celestial body. It was just that the celestial body was spherical, while this was a cube. Ling Han suddenly realized that all the celestial bodies were separated from the magic cube of origin. However, in the next instant, the magic cube of origin shrank infinitely, becoming even smaller than a cell. However, it was still composed of countless small cubes. The size could be controlled by one's will, and the changes were endless. This was the most fundamental core of the world. It could be viewed as a seed. Naturally, it was pitifully small, but once the seed grew, it could grow into a whole new world. As Ling Han carefully experienced it, he also released his divine sense into it, allowing the magic cube of origin to recognize him as its master. The magic cube of origin grew from extremely small to extremely large once again, wrapping Ling Han inside. Then, it stopped changing, and there was only a deathly stillness. However, within the magic cube of origin, an earth-shaking change was occurring. Countless regulations surged into Ling Han's body, but the height of these regulations far surpassed Ling Han's level, giving him a splitting headache. His physical body suddenly collapsed, leaving behind only his blood essence and life force. His divine sense fused together with the magic cube of origin. Without the restriction of his physical body, his divine sense was also instantly released, endlessly absorbing the massive amount of regulations that the magic cube of origin transmitted over to him. The entire neutral zone underwent a great upheaval. Everyone was expelled, and only those with the power of the ascending origin tier or higher could forcibly enter. However, if such an existence entered, they would be targeted by the world and directly turned to mush. Thus, there was no solution to this. No one disturbed Ling Han. Time flew, and 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years quickly passed. After 1,400 years, this neutral zone finally underwent a great change, no longer rejecting outsiders. Thus, regardless of whether it was the foreign realm or the celestial realm, both sent a large number of immortal palace tier elites to enter. They wanted to find out the truth behind the great change that had occurred 1,400 years ago. Of course, the celestial kings also revealed some secrets, saying that there might be an astonishing precious treasure of heaven and earth born in the neutral zone. Thus, these people also shouldered another mission, and that was to find this precious treasure, if there was one. A few years later, the magic cube of origin was finally found, and it wasn't just a single group, but 7 groups. There were people from both the celestial realm and the foreign realm, and this led to a great battle, dragging all the forces of the 2 realms into it. Because only immortal palace tier elites could enter, neither side had the superpower to decide the outcome, causing the battle to be incredibly intense and tangled, and neither side could suppress the other. Most importantly, neither side mobilized their emperor-level elites. Chapter 2249. At least on the celestial realms side, Ji Wuming, Desolation, Elena, Xing Qinyu, and the other emperor stars were all in seclusion. It was said that a powerful figure was doing his best to nurture them. Once they appeared, their strength would definitely be world-shaking. Perhaps it was the same for the otherworldly realm. However, as long as the emperor stars didn't appear, the war would be at a stalemate. Overall, the otherworldly realm was indeed stronger. However, in this neutral zone, their advantage was greatly limited. The battle was incredibly intense. No, this was a war for the sake of the Tesseract of Origin. Meanwhile, in the Tesseract of Origin, Ling Han suddenly woke up. For the past 1,000 years, he had been in a muddle-headed state. He had been passively attacked by the Tesseract of Origin's endless power of regulations. Apart from that, there was also information on how to control the Tesseract of Origin to operate this world. Now, he had finally received all the information. With a thought, boom, a burst of flames ignited, and his body immediately finished reassembling. His naked body exuded a majestic aura of life like smoke. This world belonged to him. This was an indescribable feeling. The entire neutral zone was under his control. With a thought, he could make the sky collapse and the earth split. He was the ruler of this world. Here, he didn't have to worry about the depletion of regulations. In fact, he didn't even need the Black Tower to replenish regulations for him. This was because he was the ruler of this world. In fact, he was above the regulations. What did he need regulations for? Can I kill a 9th heaven celestial king now? If they enter this world, Ling Han thought, this world could reach the level of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. In other words, his limit should be that of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Since he was a heavenly venerate, he was definitely above a 9th heaven celestial king. They weren't on the same level at all. However, if those 9th heaven celestial kings of the otherworldly realm know that I've already obtained the Tesseract of Origin, they definitely won't dare to enter this world. In fact, they might even ask a heavenly venerate to destroy this world. Not only will I not be able to kill the otherworldly realm, but I'll also suffer great losses, Ling Han thought. Right now, he was the ruler of this world, and he could continuously extract the power of heaven and earth for his own use. This kind of improvement speed was astonishing, and he could even set his own rules, so he didn't need to go to the Arcana realm to directly improve his cultivation. He had the final say in the world, so his cultivation realm was naturally a small matter. No. He instantly shook his head. The cultivation base he cultivated in this world could only be used in this world. If not, the immortal realms wouldn't acknowledge it and might even target him. What a pity. Ling Han shook his head. However, if I plan well, I might be able to kill a large number of foreign experts. At that time, I'll earn a shocking amount of battle merits. In the Heavens Pass fortress, after every battle, they would receive battle merits, especially when they killed the foreign experts. The battle merits were even more shocking. Battle merits were not determined by men, but by the heavens themselves. The world had a spirit, otherwise how could laws exist? Earlier, it had even descended on Dragon's Gate Mountain ahead of time. It was the world trying to save itself. Battle merits could be exchanged for cultivation resources, but the most precious was the Gate of Reincarnation. It could allow cultivators to reincarnate, but it also required a lot of battle merits, giving cultivators a second chance. If he killed an 18 Lotus Elite, would he be able to exchange it for enough godly metal to upgrade the Divine Demon Sword to the level of a celestial tool? Moreover, if he was lucky, he could trap and kill more than one 18 Lotus Elite. Thus, with a thought, Xiao, the Rubik's Cube of Origin immediately moved, turning into a flash of light, instantly disappearing without a trace. What? Where's the core of heaven and earth? Everyone was in the middle of a fierce battle, and when the Rubik's Cube of Origin suddenly disappeared, they were all shocked and couldn't help but stop fighting. The treasure was gone, so what was the point of fighting? Who did it? Someone asked, flustered and exasperated. It must be a monster from the foreign realm. It's you, trash. The people on both sides blamed each other, both thinking that the other had tampered with the Rubik's Cube of Origin. Wang, a frightening aura swept over, and a figure appeared. This was a humanoid creature, but it had cow hooves, bat wings, and a long tail on its back. There was a single horn on its head, and its skin was crimson. Kazan. When this person was mentioned, everyone from the foreign realm cheered, as if he was an invincible celestial king. Kazan's gaze swept over, his eyes incredibly sharp, filled with endless pressure. The celestial realm cultivators felt like their bodies were about to explode when they met his gaze. Who was this person? He was too powerful. A prodigy from the celestial realm moved, grabbing at Kazan. He was a 5 secret sovereign, a native of the Heavens Pass, and the descendant of an 8th heaven celestial king. Kazan merely looked at that person coldly, and only when that prodigy from the celestial realm neared did he move. His movements were not that fast, but with a raise of his hand, the neck of the prodigy from the celestial realm landed in his hand. Ka! A crisp sound rang out, and the neck of the prodigy from the celestial realm was snapped, his aura instantly extinguished. Instant kill. A 5 secret sovereign was actually insta-killed. How was this possible? The celestial realm cultivators present were all greatly shocked. In theory, 5 secret sovereigns should be the strongest power here. Yes, there were differences in strength between 5 secret sovereigns, but the difference should not be so great as to insta-kill them. Emperor Star. Someone said with a trembling voice. Finally, an Emperor Star appeared. This was an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm, unimaginably powerful. It was said that it could definitely become a 9th heaven celestial king, an unparalleled talent. The foreign realm had mobilized an Emperor Star, completely changing the balance of victory in this war. Kazan. The foreign realm cultivators all cheered, extremely excited. Kazan, on the other hand, did not look pleased at all. To him, insta-killing a 5 secret sovereign was a matter of course, so there was no need to make a fuss about it. He only swept his gaze around and said, "Where is the magic cube of origin?" It was taken away by these weaklings from the celestial realm using some unknown method, an expert from the foreign realm said. Bullshit, you were the ones who stole it. The celestial realm cultivator immediately retorted. Kazan smirked coldly, exuding a boundless chilly aura. Instantly, everyone shut their mouths, feeling an indescribable chill. He calmly said, "Originally, I disdained to kill trash like you, but you hid the magic cube of origin. This is seeking death." Xiao, his figure moved, and instantly turned into hundreds of afterimages. Pa. In that instant, several hundred immortal palace-tier cultivators of the celestial realm were slaughtered. Among them, there were outstanding students from the Saint Source Academy, and there were also prodigies from the natives. However, most of them were immortal palace-tier cultivators from the various forces of the Heaven's Completion Pass. Merely this slaughter caused everyone from the celestial realm to swallow with difficulty. Too powerful. They were all at the immortal palace tier, so why was the gap between them so great? Who could resist this kind of killing machine? It was likely that he alone could kill all the elites of the celestial realm here. You dare to touch the people of the celestial realm? You are tired of living. An incredibly proud voice rang out. In the distance, a figure was currently flying over at an astonishing speed, reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2250. This was an extremely young man with sharp features and brimming with heroic spirit. He was dressed plainly in an ordinary blue robe, but he naturally had a temperament that made people admire him. In the beginning, he was still far away, but in just a few blinks of an eye, he had come close. Alina! The people of the immortal region stared blankly at first, and then immediately became excited, cheering loudly. Alina was the Emperor's star of the celestial region. It was said that he had entered the immortal palace realm far before Ji Wuming and the others. Kazaron's gaze swept over, and he looked slightly cautious. There was an inexplicable connection between experts, and Elena gave him a feeling that Elena was very powerful. However, he was more confident and disdainful. "Coward, you finally dare to come out and fight? Heh, killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. Why are you acting so arrogant?" Elena said calmly. He even flicked the corner of his clothes, as if the other party was just an insignificant speck of dust. "Audacious!" The four inside all roared. Kazalong just laughed. "You only know how to boast. Then make your move." "I'll let you know how high the heavens are," Elena said. "I'll grant you your wish." Kazaron moved decisively. Xiao, the crowd's vision was unable to capture his movements at all, and he had already arrived in front of Elena. He threw out a punch, and in an instant, the heavens and earth lost their color, as if they were about to prostrate before him. Elena countered with a punch of his own. Before the two fists collided, the power of rules wrapped around their fists had already collided with each other, releasing an endless radiance like a sun that could be seen from tens of thousands of miles away. Generally speaking, after exchanging a blow, both sides would retreat and look for another opportunity. However, neither of them had the slightest intention of withdrawing their fists. Instead, they pushed their fists forward and walked toward each other. Their speed was very fast, but with every step they took, there would be a thunderous boom that would cause the people below the Immortal Mansion stage to directly faint. Too powerful. This is the Imperial Star. Finally, the two fists slowly collided. At this time, an even more resplendent brilliance lit up, like the Big Bang of the universe. Everyone's eyes were blinded, and they became completely useless. After a long time, the light finally faded. Elena and Kazarin stood 10 feet away from each other with their hands behind their backs, no longer attacking. Everyone was shocked. Just now, they couldn't sense anything at all, and their divine senses were also blocked. If Elena or Kazarin were to attack them, they wouldn't even know how they died. A gentle breeze blew, and the corners of the two Emperor Stars' clothes fluttered slightly. "You've reached the 8th layer of the 8 Lotus. Not bad at all," Kazaron said, not concealing his praise for Elena. Elena replied nonchalantly, "Same here." 8th level of the 8 Lotus. What kind of realm was that? Most people were confused, but some of the descendants and successors of the 8th and 9th Heaven's immortal kings understood that the first 5 levels of the 8 Lotus corresponded to the 5 secrets of the Immortal Mansion, and from the 6th level onwards, it corresponded to the 6 internal organs secret realm. This was the pinnacle level of the immortal palace realm, and there were pitifully few people who could reach this pinnacle level. Moreover, more than half of them could only reach the 6th or 7th secret. Those who could reach the 11th secret could be counted on one hand. An Emperor's Star was an Emperor's Star after all. To be able to cultivate to the pinnacle in every realm was something that others could only envy. However, I don't need 100 moves to kill you, Kazaron said calmly, brimming with confidence. First of all, our existential plane is of a higher level than yours. In a battle of the same cultivation level, I can crush any one of you. Secondly, there's no power of regulations here to replenish my power, but I come from a stronger existential plane. With the same amount of regulations, my battle prowess will naturally be stronger. Go ahead and brag, Elena said disdainfully. I only speak with my fists. Then I'll send you on your way. Kazaron charged forward again, his scarlet skin glowing with runes. He had entered his most powerful state. Bang bang bang. Elena was unafraid. He also activated his celestial technique, and his entire body transformed into a ball of flowing water. Every drop of water was as heavy as a star, capable of destroying everything. Water was extremely soft, but also extremely hard. Elena's mastery of the regulations of water had clearly reached an astonishing level. His ability to pierce through the air was incomparably terrifying. The two Emperor Stars had no intention of fighting back and forth. Instead, they fought head-on. 100 moves, 200 moves, 300 moves. Their attacks were too fast, and their wondrous techniques were frequently used, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. Everyone was amazed. Even the people from the Outlander plane could not help but admire Elena's strength. He was indeed an incredible person, and if he could develop in the Outlander plane, his future would be limitless. Although the earthly plane was also a low-grade plane, it was of a higher level than the immortal region. To be able to cultivate his battle prowess to such a terrifying level in such a barren land, his strength would naturally increase even further if he went to the earthly plane, where the power of regulations was even stronger. One could even say that Kazaron was actually inferior to Elena. However, who asked him to be born in the immortal region, which limited his potential and strength? Although the two Emperor Stars had been boasting at the start, in reality, their strength was extremely close. After 700 moves, they were still in a stalemate. However, their battle was too intense, and the power of regulations within their bodies was too depleted. Both of them were showing signs of strain. Kazaron, you're just a piece of trash from a low-grade plane. It's been so long and you still haven't settled it? A faint voice rang out, and a fat figure suddenly appeared. What was that? It was a fat worm that looked like a worm. It was about 10 zhang long and 12 zhang thick. It had small white feet and a pair of huge eyes on its head. Its eyes were like crystals, and it was incomparably beautiful. Kazaron suddenly raised his fists and forced Elena back. He then looked back and said, Yamu, what are you doing here? Lord Yama. At least half of the Outlander plane people knelt down and bowed respectfully. Yamu, that big worm, sneered. If one looked closely, they would see that it actually had a very feminine expression, and its voice was also slightly feminine. It was probably a female worm. Her 100 legs moved in unison, twisting her body as she moved forward. With each step, she advanced at least a few hundred miles, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right. Screams of misery rang out as she actually killed her way into the crowd. Everywhere she passed by, the people of the immortal realms would be swallowed whole by her. You're too inefficient. I'll replace you. She only spoke after eating a few dozen people. Kazaron was furious. I can take care of this. There's no need for you to interfere. Is that so? Yamu stared at Elena. This human isn't bad. I want to eat him. Elena's expression was cold. This female worm was no weaker than Kazaron's Emperor Star. If they fought outside, even if he couldn't win, his life wouldn't be in danger. But here, the power of regulations within his body was almost exhausted, and Yamu was still a force to be reckoned with. If they fought, his situation would be incomparably dangerous. But did he have to give up the magic cube of origin and the large number of people here to escape alone? The people of the immortal region all had stern expressions. They could naturally see how dangerous it was. There were 2 Emperor stars here. Brother Elena, do you need a helping hand? At that moment, a voice rang out, and a masked man quietly appeared. Chapter 2252. When they heard this, the people of Immortal Domain were all incredibly excited. Domineering release anger previously, when Kazaron attacked, hundreds of people from the celestial region had been killed. Yam's savagery was not inferior in the slightest, and he swallowed many celestial region martial artists alive. If not for Ling Han's appearance, not only would Elena not have been able to protect them, he might even have been killed by Kazaron and Yamu. Ling Han appeared, sent Yama flying with a single fist, and now he even said that he was going to wipe out all of the foreign enemies. This naturally made them incredibly excited. Yamu and Kazalong's expressions were stern. They were 2 minor realms lower than Ling Han, and their battle prowess was at least 100 times weaker. It was useless even if they worked together. There was no way they could match Ling Han. No, even if all the foreigners present attacked together, they wouldn't be a match for Ling Han. "Let's go, we'll bring up the rear," said Kazalon. As the foreign side's most powerful expert, he had to take responsibility. Yes. No matter how arrogant, cruel, and barbaric the foreigners were, before absolute strength, they could only lower their heads, all of them beginning to retreat. "Did I say you could leave?" asked Ling Han coldly. His figure flickered, transforming into millions of clones. 10 million Ling Hans attacked at the same time. Immediately, more than 1,000 foreign cultivators' heads exploded, their souls extinguished. If he wanted to, not to mention 1,000, even 100 million or 1 billion people would be instantly killed by him. "You've gone too far." Yamu and Kazalon roared in anger. It had always been the foreign realms bullying the immortal realms. But now, they were being treated as weak chickens by an immortal realm cultivator. This caused them to be incomparably furious. "Is that so?" Ling Han remained indifferent. He attacked again. Pa 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 pa. Foreign martial artists exploded one after another, their bodies turning into a rain of blood. "Go, go, go!" Yamu and Kazalong roared as they began to retreat. If they didn't escape now, all of them would be trapped here. "Kill!" The immortal region's martial artists excitedly began their pursuit. For too long, they had accumulated too much unbearable. Immortal Domain had always been a target of invasion, generation after generation. It was unknown just how many heroes had their bones buried here, some not even leaving behind their corpses. Moreover, in the previous 2 rounds of sparring between severing mundane tier and dividing soul tier, the celestial realm side had also been completely defeated. They hadn't even won a single battle. Now, they encountered a fierce person like Ling Han, beating the other side into a sorry state, to the extent where even an Emperor Star was sent flying with a single punch. Not only did this help them vent their frustrations, it also completely released the anger that had accumulated within their hearts. Fight, fight, fight. They wanted to fight to their heart's content. Hong, the people of the immortal realms charged over like a tide, while the people of the other realms fled in panic. "Brother, you can ignore the small fries, but you must kill those too," Elena said as he pointed at Kazaron and Yamu. These were 2 Emperor Stars. If they were allowed to grow, they would definitely become terrifying experts of the 9th layer Immortal King realm in the future. At that time, who knew how many people of the Immortal Domain would be slaughtered? Ling Han nodded. This was war, and there was no such thing as mercy. Moreover, the other side was the invading side, so there was even less of a need to speak of sympathy with them. Xiao, his figure moved, and he had already blocked Kazaron and Yamu's path. The single horn on Kazaron's head shone brightly. He stared at Ling Han and said, "Yam, fight with your back to the wall, a fatal blow." Yama showed a cruel and battle-hungry expression. "Fine, even if I die, I'll drag one down with me." They were both channeling some kind of secret technique. One's horn shone, and when it reached its peak, it directly melted, increasing his battle prowess by more than tenfold. The other's limbs had been severed, and he was using self-mutilation to increase his battle prowess. Ling Han didn't move, and only stood with his hands clasped behind his back. In this heaven and earth, he was the true ruler. Die! Kazarin and Yamu moved at the same time, attacking Ling Han. Rumble. This was the all-out attack of the two Emperor Stars, and energy blasted out like tsunamis. Bang, bang, bang. All of the stars in the surroundings were shattered. Boom, boom, boom. A black dagger axe shot out of Kazarin's mouth, and it fell towards Ling Han. Bone spikes condensed from Yamu's severed body, turning into thousands of sharp arrows that also swept towards Ling Han. They didn't hesitate to mutilate themselves to increase their battle prowess. Adding on the power of their combined attack, perhaps even the 9 Secrets Emperor Stars wouldn't dare to take this attack head-on. However, the two of them immediately turned around and ran after unleashing this attack. They didn't run towards the exit. Instead, one went left and the other right, charging deeper into the starry sky. The two of them were simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Ling Han reached out and lightly pressed forward. Immediately, both the dagger axe and bone spikes were instantly shattered. Yet Elena sighed. The two Emperor Stars didn't hesitate to mutilate themselves to escape, and even 10 Secrets couldn't stop them. After all, 10 Secrets was still at the Immortal Palace tier, unlike 11 Secrets, whose battle prowess directly reached the Ascending Origin tier. At that time, even if 10 Secrets Emperor Stars risked their lives, it would be useless. "Sir, who are you?" He was extremely curious. When had such a super prodigy appeared in the celestial realm? Ling Han patted Elena's shoulder with a smile and said, "Didn't I tell you? I'm called Chicken Slaughterer. All right, I'm going to go slaughter the chicken now." His figure moved, and he had already disappeared. Elena didn't think that Ling Han could catch up to Kazarin or Yamu. The two of them were only 2 minor levels lower than Ling Han, and they had started earlier and gone their separate ways. It would be difficult to catch up to any one of them, what more to catch up to both of them? He thought for a moment, and then chased after the fleeing foreigners. Although he had expended a lot of his power of regulation, the 8 Secrets Emperor Stars were still incredibly powerful even if they only had 1% of their power left. Kazarin fled, 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 fled. He ran impossibly far away, and even used the cover of the celestial body. He was confident that he had completely shaken off Ling Han's pursuit. He stroked the broken horn on his head, a look of hatred on his face. In his race, the horn was the toughest part, comparable to pseudo-divine metal of the same level. It contained his blood essence, and in times of danger he could forcibly burn the blood essence within it in exchange for a large increase in battle prowess. However, once the blood essence was burned, it couldn't be stopped. Moreover, losing a large amount of blood essence would not only cause his battle prowess to plummet, but his cultivation level would also regress. In fact, it might even affect his future path of martial art. However, as long as he could preserve his life, there was still a chance for him to start over. He arrived on a celestial body. This was a newly born celestial body, and it was barren and desolate. There was no trace of life at all. Kazarin sat on a large rock, panting. He took out an alchemical pill and swallowed it to treat the injury of his broken horn. "Hey, don't sit on me." A voice traveled out from below him. Kazarin's face instantly turned green in fright, and he bounced up. He stared at the rock in disbelief. That rock was only a rock, and it didn't have arms or legs. How was this possible? His heart was beating like a drum. He had clearly heard Ling Han's voice just now. "Are you looking for me?" Ling Han's voice sounded out. Kazarin hurriedly turned around, only to see that Ling Han was standing right behind him. "Impossible!" he immediately shouted. Even if Ling Han was stronger than him, it was impossible for him to appear behind him without making a sound. Chapter 2253. Ling Han revealed his true appearance. Now that there was no one else here, he naturally didn't need to disguise himself anymore. He smiled and said, "Why not?" Kazarin looked at Ling Han, feeling that this face was extremely unfamiliar. Even without the mask, he wouldn't recognize him at all. He pointed at Ling Han. You're only 2 minor levels higher than me, so how did you catch up to me so quickly and appear behind me without me noticing? Ling Han was more like an ascending origin tier. However, ascending origin tiers couldn't enter here, which meant that he could only be at the 8 Lotus 11th layer. Was that possible? Ling Han smiled slightly. What's impossible? You're just a frog at the bottom of a well. Kazaron also laughed and said, although you caught up to me, you talked for so long, and I can still keep you busy for a while. That's enough time for Yamu to escape. Don't be too proud. Once the scarlet blood appears, killing you is like slaughtering a chicken. Ling Han shook his head. I'm the slaughterer. Stealing my nickname isn't a good person. Let's fight. Kazaron threw caution to the wind, letting go of everything. He only had the spirit to fight. With this, his spirit actually underwent a complete transformation. A terrifying aura surged from his body, and his strength increased by a large margin. Before, he had never been in such a desperate situation. Thus, his spirit was tempered now, allowing him to surpass himself. An Emperor's Star was an Emperor's Star, after all. Even a difficult situation could be turned into an opportunity. What a pity. If I had more time, I could break through to the 8 Lotus 9th layer. At that time, it's hard to say who would win, Kazaron said regretfully. If he broke through to the 8 Lotus 9th layer, and with the help of burning blood essence, it would be equivalent to the 8 Lotus 10th layer. He wouldn't lose to Ling Han at all. Ling Han smiled and said, all right, I'll give you the 9th layer. He pointed, and a ray of light instantly wrapped around Kazaron. Then, Kazaron's aura began to expand as if there was no limit. 3 times, 50 times, 10 times, Kazaron's current cultivation was the 8 Lotus 9th layer. His cultivation had clearly increased greatly, but Kazaron only felt a chill all over his body. Cold sweat poured out uncontrollably. Just a finger was enough to raise his cultivation by a small realm. What kind of ability was this? Are you the creator? As this thought flashed through his mind, he suddenly froze and revealed a look of incomparable shock. He pointed at Ling Han with a trembling finger and said, You obtained the Tesseract of Origin. Otherwise, even an immortal king wouldn't have been able to raise his cultivation level by a minor level with just a single finger. Heaven and earth have their own rules. Only by becoming the ruler of this world would one be able to do as one pleased, becoming a god or a demon with a single thought. Of course, this minor realm increase was only applicable here. As long as he left this place, he would return to his original state. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, You finally realized. Kazaron's skin was originally red, but now it was as pale as paper. He stared at Ling Han in a daze, and the fear in his heart grew stronger and stronger. The other party had purposely disguised himself as an 8 Lotus 10th layer cultivator. Was he trying to sabotage the foreign realm? Why? What level has your strength reached? He asked, holding on to a sliver of hope. Perhaps this heaven and earth was too weak, and Ling Han was at most only as strong as an elite with 15 or 16 lotuses. Thus, the damage he could cause was naturally limited. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, killing a 9th heaven immortal king, or in other words, an 18 lotus cultivator shouldn't be a problem. You're really vicious. Kazaron spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't hard to imagine how many immortal kings would be killed by Ling Han if the foreign realm wasn't on guard. Ling Han smiled and said, These are your last words? Don't be so arrogant. No matter how strong you are, you can't rival a heavenly venerable. Kazaron shouted. Our heavenly venerables far outnumber yours. Any one of them can turn you into dust. That has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and go on your way. Reincarnate into a good person in your next life. Ling Han attacked. With a punch, Kazaron was instantly killed. There's one more, he murmured. Then, his figure became transparent like air and disappeared. Yama didn't stop. She hadn't used up any of her power of laws, and with her self-mutilation, her battle prowess had increased tenfold. At this moment, she was at her peak condition. She even dared to fight a true 9 Secrets Imperial Star. She had made a huge detour. Her final goal was naturally to escape from this place. She was proficient in the laws of space, so her speed was astonishing. A strange feeling suddenly rose up in her heart because she felt that the celestial body she had just passed was somewhat familiar. An imperial star like her naturally wouldn't have such a feeling for no reason. Since she felt that it was familiar, then she must have seen it before. She took note of it. Shio. Her figure flashed rapidly, and then she suddenly stopped. Cold sweat dripped down her bug face. She had passed that celestial body once. She hadn't been going in circles, so how could something like this happen? However, she was an imperial star after all, and her will was firm. She immediately calmed down and continued forward. This time, she concentrated and observed carefully. It appeared again. Shock appeared on her bug face again because she had seen that celestial body for the third time. What's going on? Was this because some strange change had occurred at the beginning of the world? Why did she have to encounter it now, and at this time too? Hey, is it fun? A voice suddenly rang out by her ear. Who is it? Yamo hurriedly looked around, but couldn't find anything. She was even more shocked. With her strength, there was actually someone who could hide in front of her. This was unimaginable. You're that forgetful? Ling Han chuckled. It's you. Yamu immediately remembered, and her bug body couldn't help but tremble. This person had actually caught up to her so quickly. She felt a chill run down her spine. What made her even more terrified was whether the celestial body that kept appearing had something to do with Ling Han. If so, then it was too terrifying. Ling Han's figure appeared, as if he had walked out of thin air. Yama calmed down. After all, she was an imperial star, and her mental fortitude wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. She said, "You chose to chase me, so Kazan will definitely be able to escape." Many years later, when Kazaran becomes an 18 Lotus cultivator, he will definitely kill enough of the dregs of the immortal realms to take revenge for me. Ling Han chuckled and said, actually, Kazaran has also said something similar to me. Nonsense. Yam's voice trembled. Hey, aren't you surprised by what just happened? Ling Han laughed. You did it. Yamu's entire body was trembling. That's right. Ling Han nodded. Yamu finally reacted. You obtained the magic cube of origin. You can control this world. You got it right again. It's a pity there's no reward, said Ling Han with a smile. Yamu's face was ashen. The magic cube of origin had actually fallen into Ling Han's hands. This meant that Ling Han's methods were truly earth-shattering. Just like Kazaran, she thought of many things. Ling Han's strength was clearly not limited to this, but he had purposely suppressed his strength. What was his intention? This guy wants to play Great Een. Chapter 2254. You guessed right. I do plan to screw you all over. It would be best if I could wipe you all clean from top to bottom. Ling Han smiled and said, however, you don't need to worry, because you won't see this day coming. He casually flicked his finger, and Yamu's massive insect body immediately exploded, destroyed in both body and soul. A small gain. With a thought, the area in front of him was instantly filled with spatial god tools. These were all left behind by foreign cultivators after they died, and were originally distributed in various corners. However, this world was equivalent to Ling Han's body, so it was naturally a piece of cake to collect these spatial god tools. If I want to kill foreign elites, the first thing I have to do is naturally to let them in here, Ling Han murmured. Thus, I have to raise the upper limit of the regulations of this heaven and earth so that even ninth heaven celestial king tier beings can enter. Then I can go on a killing spree. He immediately began to raise the height of the regulations of this world. Right now, he was the master of this world, above the regulations, and could set up any regulations he wanted. However, he soon discovered that when he raised the upper limit of the regulations to the ascending origin tier, it was naturally easy, but after that, when he advanced into the celestial king tier, he felt strained. The strength of the heaven and earth here was indeed at the pseudo-heavenly venerable level, but the regulations were far inferior. He tried his best, but could only reach the fifth heaven of the celestial king tier. However, if he personally protected it, then anyone could ignore the suppression of the regulations here. Even celestial venerables could enter without angering this world. No wonder the foreign celestial venerables didn't directly destroy this area. It turned out that they wanted their people to control it. Otherwise, if they directly destroyed it, it would affect the stability of the connection point between the two realms and greatly delay the foreign invasion. In that case, I can only trap and kill elites with 14 lotuses at most. Ling Han appeared to be a bit unwilling, but then laughed in spite of himself. Why don't you think about your own cultivation level? Isn't it enough to kill 14 lotuses? This is still a tremendous battle achievement. Celestial kings above the fifth heaven couldn't enter at all. Forcing their way in was equivalent to becoming enemies with pseudo-heavenly venerable level heaven and earth. This was like striking a rock with an egg, seeking death. Although I have no intention of refining the magic cube of origin, controlling the revolution of the world is a rare experience for me. It will help me understand the essence of the world and allow me to break through the limits of the rules. Ling Han mused. With a single thought, he appeared at the border of this world. If he took another step forward, he would be in the territory of the immortal region. After returning to the immortal realms, I've lost my respect for the laws of heaven and earth. Because I was once the ruler of this world, even if the level of this world is far lower than the immortal realms. But in essence, it's the same. I'm not willing to be beneath the heavens. Ling Han had an irrepressible impulse in his heart. Not only did he want to become an Empyrean, but he also didn't want to become an Empyrean. He wanted to become the ruler of heaven and earth, not just above the laws. Heavenly Venerate sealed Qing and the other two must be related to Heavenly Venerate original life's death. If I want them to pay the price, becoming a Heavenly Venerate is not enough. He felt somewhat emotional as he flew along. After leaving the neutral region, his strength had been beaten back to its original state. He had no choice but to travel in a well-behaved manner, unlike in the neutral region where he could appear anywhere with a single thought. He arrived at the bottom of the Heavens Pass, where there was a teleportation formation to enter the Heavens Pass. Amidst the surging light, his figure disappeared. He had already entered the Heavens Pass. He then arrived at the 17th Battalion of the 4th Division. He first went to report to Nyehashan. He had disappeared for more than 1,000 years, so he naturally had to inform his superior first. Otherwise, he might even be punished by military discipline. Where have you been all these years? Nyehashan looked at him with an extremely displeased expression. Because of Ling Han, he had even been reprimanded by the 10,000 ancient immortal king. But who could he reason with? Ling Han had his own legs, and they couldn't be tied up. Ling Han naturally had already thought of an excuse, and he said, I obtained some fortuitous encounters, and I've been cultivating in seclusion all these years. Nyehashan frowned and said, Do you know you're ridiculously wrong to make such a decision on your own? Do you think your cultivation is advancing very quickly? Let me tell you, Ji Wuming, Primordial Desolation, and the others have already broken through to the 5th secret. Fuck so fast? Ling Han thought about it again. A total of more than 1,400 years had passed, and if he included the time acceleration, Ji Wuming and the others had definitely lived for an astonishing amount of time. Furthermore, they had obtained a vast amount of cultivation resources, and with the protection of an immortal king, their cultivation speed was definitely astonishing. One had to know that they were all Emperor stars, and Ji Wuming was even a reincarnated 9th heaven immortal king. Let alone the 5th secret, even if it was the 11th secret, Ling Han could accept it. Ling Han only nodded. In any case, he couldn't tell them the truth, so he could only accept it humbly. The 10,000 ancient immortal king has the intention of nurturing you and letting you walk a different path. That's why he allowed you to stay here for a while and comprehend things. 200 years after you arrived here, Lord 10,000 Ancient planned to take you away. I didn't expect you to hide somewhere and enter seclusion. Nyehashan shook his head repeatedly. You're too stupid. Aren't you picking sesame seeds instead of watermelons? Ling Han only smiled. He naturally couldn't say that he had obtained a core of heaven and earth. If he directly refined it, he could effortlessly become a ninth heaven celestial king, and be on equal footing with the 10,000 ancient immortal king. He was very clear about what watermelons and what sesame seeds were. Your friend and wife have already been taken away by the 10,000 ancient immortal king. With their fated opportunities, you don't need to worry. Nie Hashan changed the topic and began to console Ling Han. He said a few more words, and also felt that there was no meaning in this, so he sent Ling Han away. The events that had happened in the neutral region soon spread, and the name of that mysterious elite, chicken slaughterer, spread throughout the heavens completion pass. He was too powerful. He had sent an emperor star that was equivalent to the 8th secret flying with a single punch, and his strength was even stronger than Elena's. Could there be a second person like him in the heavens completion pass? Perhaps it was Xing Qin and Yu. Moreover, everyone also learned about the drastic changes in the neutral region. It wasn't just Immortal Palace tier. Now, Ascending Origin tier and even Celestial Kings could enter. This caused everyone to feel uneasy. Perhaps an all-out war would soon erupt. The Foreign Realm also quickly reacted, and once again raised their request to start an Immortal Palace tier-level spar with the Celestial Realm. They also stated that for every match that the Celestial Realm won, the Foreign Realm would not invade for another 10,000 years. This caused many people to be tempted. If they won a match, they would gain another 10,000 years of peace. This meant that the Celestial Realm would have more time to recuperate, and more time to nurture the younger generation to better deal with the Foreign Realm's next invasion. Especially since the Celestial Realm had no lack of Immortal Palace tier-level Emperor stars. They had the right to fight, and there was a possibility that they could win. This naturally wasn't decided by ordinary people, but rather by those Celestial Kings. In fact, only 9th Heaven Celestial Kings were qualified to participate in this discussion. And 7 days later, a decision was made. It was just a single word, yet it ignited the fighting spirit of everyone in the Heavens Completion Pass. Was even more refreshing. Chapter 2256. Why was it the other side that invaded the immortal region and not the other way around? That was because the other side's world level was higher, and they had more experts and stronger battle prowess. That was why they were the invaders. However, the essence of heaven and earth is more or less the same. Ling Han thought about it carefully. Compared to the immortal domain, the other realm had another type of law called darkness. Once the darkness rule was unleashed, a person would enter a frenzied state. It could even obscure one's vision and divine intent. It was an extremely powerful rule. This rule did not exist in the immortal region. In this 1 month, Ling Han didn't do much. He merely spent tens of thousands of years in the Black Tower extracting a sliver of the regulations of darkness. With a single thought, his body immediately changed. A single horn grew out of his head, and a tail grew out of his thigh. His shoes split open, revealing a pair of hoof-like feet. His skin was as red as fire. This was imitating the foreign cultivators in terms of physique. Anyone could do it, but this was a physique, not a spirit. Any immortal would be able to see some clues with a single glance. Ling Han circulated the law of darkness again, and his aura immediately underwent a fundamental change. He was no longer any different from a foreigner. Very weak, equivalent to the lowest level of severing mundane tier. Ling Han murmured. If he entered into the foreign realm at this time, then he would not be able to obtain the replenishment of the regulations of the celestial realm, and the power of his immortal palace would be quickly exhausted. Even with the replenishment of the Black Tower, there would still come a time when it would be exhausted. At that time, he would only be able to use the regulations of the foreign realm, which was equivalent to the most ordinary severing mundane tier. However, the laws of heaven and earth are pretty much the same. If I cultivate diligently, I should be able to increase my cultivation very quickly. He speculated. Because he had the magic cube of origin, no matter which realm he cultivated, he could quickly reach the 9th level of the immortal king realm, which was the height of the 18 lotuses. Moreover, the foreign realm's laws are actually a bit higher in terms of level. Cultivating these laws is beneficial to me, allowing me to become stronger against those at the same level. Ling Han had an almost paranoid pursuit of martial art. He had to achieve perfection. In the immortal realms, he had cultivated every single cultivation realm to perfection. But now he was shaking his head. There were still many areas where he wasn't strong enough. This wasn't his fault, but rather, it was the limitations of this world. In immortal domain, he could be considered perfect, but in the other side, he still had room for improvement. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a little apprehensive. The other side sent out true exceptional geniuses. Would even Ji Wuming be able to match them? It wasn't that Ji Wuming wasn't strong enough, but it was the difference between the heavens and earth. Thankfully, I still have the origin Rubik's Cube, so I can cheat. No matter what you come at me, I'll suppress them all. Ling Han exited the Black Tower. If he had the time, he still wanted to figure out the other regulations of the foreign realm and polish his cultivation level to an even more perfect level. Ding Clan's 17th camp moved out. Everyone entered the neutral region. Even though it was just an exchange of pointers with the other side, it was still extremely important. Even if most of the people here couldn't go up and fight, they still had to go add fuel to the fire and lend a hand. Because the upper limit of the neutral zone's rules had been lifted, this time, even Nye Hashan could enter instead of waiting outside. In fact, in this 1 month, there were already ascending origin tier and even celestial kings that had entered the neutral region to hunt the living beings inside. Firstly, there would be celestial medicine to be harvested, and secondly, their flesh could replenish the consumption of regulations. At first, Ling Han wanted to draw all these living beings into the Black Tower, but on the other hand, if he did that, everyone would be suspicious, wouldn't they? Thus, he could only endure the pain. In order to catch these big fish from the other side, he could only make some small sacrifices. If he couldn't sacrifice the child, he couldn't catch the wolf. Humph! When it was Ling Han's turn, Shen Chao immediately sneered coldly, a cold smirk playing at the corners of his lips. He had advanced into the ascending origin tier. He was originally at the peak stage of the 5th secret, and after 1400 years, with time accelerating for who knew how many years, he had successfully completed a great transformation, advancing into the ascending origin tier. One had to realize that Immortal Palace tier still used origin power, but ascending origin tier completely transformed origin power into source power, so it was called ascending origin tier. This was source power of heaven and earth, and its might was extraordinarily great, not something that Immortal Palace tier could compare with. Xin Chao naturally disdained Ling Han. So what if you're an Emperor's star? You're only a mere 2nd secret, and I can suppress you with a single finger. However, it was not convenient for him to make a move now, and could only glare at him. In future, he would definitely make Ling Han lose all face. He was even more secretly hateful that he did not know that Ling Han had already returned for more than a month. Otherwise, he would definitely have charged over to settle scores with him long ago. Why did he still stay in the army camp after advancing into the ascending origin tier? Wasn't it because he could not swallow this insult? Ling Han took note of his expression and couldn't help but smile. In this neutral territory, you dare to be rude to me? He deserved a beating. In front of everyone's eyes, Shen Chao actually fell flat on his face. Haha. A considerable number of people had already laughed out loud. This was really too funny. An ascending origin tier elite would actually fall flat on his face for no reason, and it was such a solid fall at that. Wasn't this a joke? Meanwhile, Shen Chao's expression was filled with confusion. He himself did not know what was going on, and he just fell flat on his face just like that. It was as if heaven and earth wanted you to kneel, and there was not the slightest bit of bargaining. He crawled up, but before he could stand firm, he suddenly fell flat on his face again. This time, the fall was even more solid, and even his teeth were knocked out, blood flowing endlessly. He crawled up, but his legs gave way, and he fell flat on his face for the 3rd time. This time, no one could laugh anymore, and only felt that this was incredibly strange. Has Shen Chao offended some celestial king? Someone speculated. Otherwise, How could an ascending origin tier monarch be in such a sorry state? However, the Shen clan also has a celestial king, and it is said that he is a seventh heaven existence. Which celestial king is so disrespectful? Someone asked curiously. The celestial kings that could enter here could not surpass the fifth heaven, so why did this celestial king dare to bully the weak? Was he not afraid that that celestial king of the Shen clan would fly into a rage? We had better not speak too much about the matters of important figures. Whether it was Shun Chao or the celestial king that secretly made a move, they had both surpassed the level of everyone else. Shen Chao was still tumbling, and only after falling 18 times in a single breath did he finally stop. He, too, was afraid, and sat down on the ground without any regard for his image. He raised his head to look at the sky, his eyes filled with resentment. A high and mighty celestial king actually made a move on him, a mere ascending origin tier. How shameless could he be? Yet he did not think that he was already in the ascending origin tier, yet still had to make a move on Ling Han, who was the second secret. This was really shameless. Ling Han only smiled. This kind of feeling of playing tricks on others behind their backs was very satisfying. No wonder the large black dog was so evil. Sigh, he had really been led astray by him. If the large black dog knew, he would definitely bark madly. Your nature was just like that, all right? After such a small interlude, the 17th Battalion traveled over mountains and rivers, and finally arrived at the place where the celestial realm and the foreign realm had agreed to spar. It was a massive plain, and there was actually a slight bulge in the center, as if it was a naturally formed arena, causing one to sigh in amazement at the wonders of creation. In truth, this was Ling Han's doing. There were already a great many people from the celestial realm, and there were people of all cultivation levels. Furthermore, there was no age limit. There were young calves, and there were also those of the older generation who had been famous for many years. The result of this spar was really too important. Chapter 2257. Ling Han saw many familiar faces here. Among the allies were Yi Yen Xianlu, Fu Zhou, Hao Xinjue, and the others, but there was no trace of the Empress, Hu Niu, or the Emperor stars of the Rain Emperor and Ji Wuming. Many people from the foreign realm also came, and they minded their own business with the celestial realm, standing 100 miles apart. Ling Han didn't want to stand out at this time, and only merged with the heaven and earth, observing. Everything was under control, and this feeling was really strange. Many people liked to hold great power and be high above others, while some liked absolute strength, and could similarly control the fate of others, but all this couldn't compare to becoming the master of the heaven and earth. Every detail that happened here was under his control, and with a single thought, the wind and clouds rose, and the heaven and earth changed. Everyone was his prey, and he could kill them if he wanted, and pinch them if he wanted. Ling Han, unconsciously, felt that there were even more people hurrying over. After a long time, his spirits rose because he saw the Empress, Hu Niu, and the other two girls. They were with the Rain Emperor. The three girls actually reached the fifth secret. This advancement was quite fast. Then, the Empress suddenly paused. She had a strange feeling as if she was being spied on. "It's Niu's Ling Han," Hu Niu exclaimed, clapping her hands, her face filled with joy. "Fourth brother." The Rain Emperor didn't have the sharp intuition of these two girls, and was slightly surprised. "It's me." Ling Han's voice sounded in the minds of the four at the same time. "Ling Han, where are you?" Hu Niu called out. "Waiting for you at the destination," Ling Han said smilingly. The Rain Emperor couldn't help but be shocked. They were still very far from the destination, and he couldn't sense Ling Han's location at all, but Ling Han could accurately find them, and even send his divine sense into their minds. What kind of strength was this? "Ling Han, Niu missed you," Hu Niu said in a sweet voice. She didn't care at all where Ling Han had gone and what he had done in these years. As long as she could see Ling Han again, she would be happy. Ling Han nodded, smiled, and said, "I also missed my Niu, hee. Hu Niu giggled. Ling Han briefly explained the Rubik's Cube of origin. In fact, there wasn't much to say. He was in a muddle-headed state most of the time. The Empress and the others all sighed ruefully. They hadn't thought that there would be such a treasure in the neutral region. Their experiences in the past few years were also very simple. They knew that Ling Han must have had some fortuitous encounter, which was why he did not appear. They were not worried in the slightest, and merely cultivated as usual. Over 1,000 years ago, the Rain Emperor had been taken away by the 10,000 ancient celestial king to be heavily nurtured. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor had also included the Empress, Hunyeo, and bewitching Maiden Ro, clearly expressing that unless everyone was nurtured together, he would rather not have them. Thus, the Empress and her 2 daughters were also taken away. However, the Empress and Hunyeo were indeed worthy of nurturing. They merely hadn't reached perfection in the dividing soul tier, yet they could still comprehend the 11th secret in the immortal mansion tier. They could still ascend to the heights of 9th heaven's celestial king tier. The Rain Emperor's freakish talent was on full display. He had already reached the height of the 6th secret. However, the 4 of them had all cultivated the Tai cosmic celestial body, and the Rain Emperor was even advancing in the direction of the Tai cosmic infinity body. His body could transform into the flow of time, which was incredibly miraculous. Ling Han naturally didn't envy him. If he reached the 5th secret, then he could also cultivate the great cosmos immortal body. And if he obtained the magic cube of origin, he would be able to surpass the rules and become stronger than any other physique. Unfortunately, the Rubik's cube of origin had already fused with him, so he couldn't take it out for Empress and the others to study. As they spoke, the Rain Emperor and the others finally arrived at their destination. They met up with Ling Han, and the 5 of them sat together. This did not cause too much of a commotion. After all, the Rain Emperor was not as famous as Ji Wuming and the others. More and more people arrived. This was because Ling Han had arrived along with Ji Wuming, Desolate, and the others. It was just that these people couldn't find him. 9 immortal kings came. The number of immortal kings from the other side is also 9. Ling Han's eyes were closed, yet he could hear everything extremely clearly. Did they have this kind of agreement long ago? Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental? It's just that 9 immortal kings from the other side is a little too few, he said in his mind. He wanted to make a big deal and trap and kill a sufficient number of immortal kings from the other side, because this could only be a one-time deal. Xiao, a celestial king from the other side, appeared. There was a 12-petal black lotus on his forehead, which represented that his cultivation level was equivalent to the 3rd heaven of celestial king. He stood in the air. The number of rules locked in a celestial king's body was naturally astonishing. Moreover, when the other side invaded, they all relied on the rules locked in their bodies to fight. To them, this was a small matter. "Let's begin," he said calmly. "We will fight in a tournament, and the winner can continue fighting. How about it?" "Sure." An elite from the celestial realm also appeared and agreed to this sparring method. For the celestial realm, this was even better, because they only needed to win 1 round, and they would be able to obtain a chance to cultivate for 10,000 years. "Tuta, you go first," that 12-petal elite said. A foreign martial artist immediately flew out and stood on the large protruding platform in the middle of the plains. He was in the form of a bug, resembling a praying mantis. He had a pair of shockingly long arm blades, and his 6 legs all had barbs that were shaped like sharp blades, releasing cold light. "Tuta, come and fight." He brandished the arm blades, releasing chong-chong sounds. "Who will accept death?" "Insolent bug." An immortal realm warrior leapt out. This was a tall and slender youngster, even more so a 5-secret emperor. This type of battle required a monarch realm expert to take action, and they had to be at least 5-secret. Otherwise, the celestial realm wouldn't have agreed to exchange pointers with the other side a long time ago, all for the sake of having more time to nurture this generation's young heroes. Tuta lightly rubbed the 2 arm blades together, and then said in a low voice, "You don't need to tell me your name, because I won't care about trash like you at all." "Who asked you to be arrogant?" That youngster took action, attacking towards Tuta. The man and bug fought a great battle, but soon after, the people on the celestial realm side all frowned, because Tuta clearly held the advantage. After 200 moves, his advantage was already incredibly clear, even an idiot able to see this. When he saw that the youngster was in imminent danger, Immortal Realm's great figure spoke up, saying, "Enough, we admit defeat in this battle." That youngster wanted to retreat, but Tuta didn't give up. He brandished his arm blades, killing intent surging. Immortal Realm's great figure couldn't help but release a cold snort, reaching out a hand. This one said, "Stop." Pang! His hand couldn't press down because the other side's experts also took action, stopping his large hand. The younger generation's battle? Why is Great One interfering? The other side's experts said coldly. Could be considered to have escaped by the skin of his teeth. It seemed like luck, but in reality, it was Ling Han who secretly took action. With his ability as the ruler of heaven and earth, even the immortal king couldn't see any clues, only thinking that the youngster truly suddenly erupted with life's potential. Tuta didn't chase after him, only revealing a sinister expression, sticking out his tongue to lick the arm blades. There was blood on them. "Next," he said coldly, his killing intent blazing. Book, Ancient Divine Dragon Technique, Wild Blade Martial Emperor, Sun Qing unexpectedly obtained the world's most powerful technique, the Ancient Divine Dragon Technique, but was plotted against by the world's most beautiful war goddess, unexpectedly being reborn. Cultivating a supreme technique, subduing the beautiful war goddess, slaughtering his way into the 9 heavens 10 earths, battling the endless worlds of the divine wasteland, vowing to become the supreme being. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.